know that clock, right?
Whenever you're ready.
You ready? Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Today is Tuesday, November 10th, 2020. It is 8:30. We're going to open this regular Board of Supervisors meeting in closed session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Joe Nevs,
Here.
Richard Valley,
Here.
Doug Verboon,
Here.
Craig Peterson is absent. Richard
Who's going to
Fagundes.
call in? Craig was going to call in. Craig, you there? No. Okay, we have 4 members present, 1 absent. We're ready to conduct business today. At this time, we'll move this meeting into closed session for conference for real property negotiator, government code section 54956.8, property southeast corner of 16th Avenue and Jersey Avenue, APN 028-130-028. Negotiating parties Doug Verboon and consulting with others, including Rebecca Campbell, Richard Valley, Dave Robinson, Dave Lynch, Bill Lynch, Diane Freeman, Lee Burdick for the county negotiation terms and conditions for occupancy. Okay, we're in closed session. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, what can I do for you?
Good morning, everyone. Melanie, are you on?
She is nearby. This is Aaron. I'm actually managing the meeting. What can I do for you, Scott?
Hey, good morning, Aaron. Just wanted to let you know I have my hand raised on purpose. I have some announcements about Veterans Day that I'd like to go over during public comment.
Sounds good. We'll let the board know.
Roger copy all. Thank you.
You understand that while you thought that
Good morning, Melanie. This is Sun Chung. Can you hear me?
Hi, Ing Chong. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
Hey, Aaron, this is Dominic. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Dom.
Very good. Thank you.
Aaron, it's Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here for public comment. Can you hear me?
Hi, Nanette. Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Hey, Melanie, it's Craig.
Hey, Craig, it's Aaron. I can hear you and I'll annotate you, sir. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Morning, Aaron. Can you hear me? Good. Yeah, I gotta go get a longer cable for my phone. Hopefully it's still out in the gym. Damn it. Fucker. Somebody fucking needs it more than me. God dang it.
Somebody's got a hot mic.
Good morning. I just wanted to go ahead and announce that the board is still in closed session for the time being. I know it's past 9, but the meeting will be starting soon. Thank you for your patience.
Good morning, Supervisor Peterson. You might want to go ahead and mute your mic for the present.
Hey, this is Craig Peterson coming back in.
Hey, Craig, we hear you loud and clear, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay, good morning. We are back, coming out of closed session, and it is 9 a.m. It is November 10th. This is a regular meeting of the King County Board of Supervisors. And we'll start off today's meeting by invocation from Stan Ploy, Bonania Church. Morning, Stan.
Good morning.
Please rise.
Well, first, let me say thank you for the opportunity. It's been 3 years since I've come here to pray, and just haven't had the opportunity, but I'm very grateful to be here. So let's seek the Lord. Dear gracious Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, thank you, Lord, for a beautiful morning and the opportunity to lead this invocation prayer on behalf of our Board of Supervisors. Lord, we pray for this board that you will give them wisdom, direction, integrity, and Lord, I also pray for our nation. We are just in some uncharted waters as a people. And, Lord, I do pray, and accept if Joe Biden is our new president, only if he won fair and square. And if that is not the case, oh Lord, I pray that you would make right what is wrong. Because, Lord, we cannot move forward as a country if an election has been stolen. We can't function that way. We can't survive. So we pray that justice would prevail. And again, if he won fair and square, wonderful. We'll pray for Joe Biden and his administration. But we pray, Lord, because it trickles down even to here. We've got to have integrity. We've got to have trust. We've got to have what you established in the right way. And so we pray that that would take place in our country, that it'll take place here. We do thank you for our board. We know, Lord, they work hard. They do the best they can to lead our community, and we thank you for them. And we pray that you'll protect them, give them the ability to govern well, and allow them to seek you for wisdom and direction and guidance. And we just thank you for who you are, and we put our complete trust in you. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. This time, I'd like to invite Supervisor Valley to lead us in the flag salute. Today is Lorraine's birthday, so Supervisor Valley, please lead us in the flag salute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Ploy, for that. Okay, we'll move on now to item number 4, unscheduled appearances. Any person may directly address this board at this time on any item on the agenda or any other items of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board. 2 minutes are allowed for each item. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody with their hands up?
Chairman, first of all, we have Scott Howell from Veteran Services.
Okay, and I'll ask everybody, if you're not speaking, please leave your phones or items or your equipment on mute so we can have this conversation. So Scott Howell, are you there? Scott Howell, you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Scott Howell, Kings County Veteran Services. Just coming to you to make some announcements. Pardon me, about Veterans Day. First thing I'd like to do is say happy birthday to the Marine Corps. 245 years strong. Semper Fi to all the Marines out there. It's an honor to be able to serve in this position and to be able to see the birthdays of the services as they transpire. So for Veterans Day tomorrow, things have changed a little bit. VFW Post 5869 normally sponsors a Veterans Day stand-down festival, which is usually held at the fairground, and more recently at Civic Park here in Hanford. That event has been canceled due to COVID-19 considerations. However, American Legion Post 3 from Hanford is going to hold their Veterans Day celebration titled The Future of the Military. That'll be tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. At the Hanford Cemetery over by where the tank is. Most folks know where that is. If they don't, it's on 10th Avenue, just south of Highway 198 and just north of where the fairgrounds are at. We've got Brigadier General David Smith coming up from down south, and he will be our guest speaker. For more information, people can call 583-1169. That's 583-1169. And then the other event that's going on tomorrow is actually a virtual event. It's being put on by the College of the Sequoias Veteran Resource Center, West Hills College, and Porterville College. And rather than try to recite the website to go to, if folks call Callie Brannon at 925-3345, that's 925-3345 out of West Hills College, she will provide the information, or they can email me at my office and I will send that link to them for Veterans Day. I don't know which restaurants and which businesses are offering discounts, but most of them typically do to veterans. And so folks, get out there, celebrate Veterans Day. And I would like to thank all the veterans for the sacrifice that they and their families have made over the years. That's all I have.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate that. Melanie, happy birthday to the Marines. So appreciate all they do. Melanie, you have anybody else on the line?
We have Nanette from Kings County United Way.
Good morning, Nanette. Can you hear us all right?
I can. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you this morning for public comment. I would like to provide data from the Homeless Management Information System, commonly referred to as HMIS. This system operates and collects information on homelessness and adherence to policies established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Kings County participates in an annual point-in-time homeless census. Since the inception of the point-in-time count, the data has consistently shown that approximately 75 to 85% of those experiencing homelessness indicate that their last permanent residence was within Kings County. Viewed as a highly transient population, data on homelessness dispute this theory. The percentages over the last 2 years are as follows. In 2008, the percentage was 80%, and in 2019, the percentage was 82%. In 2019, the national average of unsheltered rate for other urban homeless continuums of care was 24%, compared to Kings County with an unsheltered rate of 8%, 96% for chronically homeless individuals, and 56% for individuals. This means a homeless person would be about 3.5 times more likely to live somewhere not in human habitation in Kings County compared to other areas of the nation. According to the 2020 point-in-time numbers, the unsheltered rate has increased to 50% overall. Between 2019 and 2020, Kings County added 5 emergency shelter and/or transitional housing beds. However, the population of homeless grew in that time period from 250 to 305 persons, outpacing the growth of the number of beds. Kings County has the second worst sheltered rate among other largely urban DOCs in the country for 2019 and the worst for 2020. It would take the creation of 258 permanent housing units to get to the national average. For these reasons, Kings United Way supports Project Homekey, as it will generate critically needed permanent supportive housing units in Kings County. Thank you for the opportunity to share this information.
Thank you, Nanette. Appreciate your comments. Melanie, we have anybody else? We have Mikhail Smith on the line. Mr. Smith, can you hear us? I can't hear you, Melanie. Oh, can you please unmute? He had his hand up, but he's not there. Okay. If I know you emailed us, Mikhail, so we'll try again at a later date. So thank you very much. Anybody else? Mikhail, can you hear us now? If you can, please unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Mikhail, I think maybe your phone might be on mute.
Nothing? Okay, we'll try again later or another date, or you can call our office and email us what your concerns are. So thank you very much.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. There we go. We hear you now.
Hey, sorry. So sorry about that. Hi, Michelle Smith with the Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance. I serve as the executive director. Thank you for allowing me to comment on the Homekey project, and I apologize for those computer glitches. Our mission at the Homeless Alliance is to coordinate and leverage policy and resources that empower community partners to address homelessness within Kings and Tulare counties. On any given night in Kings County, there are approximately 305 people experiencing homelessness. Kings County is home to a naval air station, yet veterans experience homelessness at a rate 38% higher than the national average. Nearly 1 in 4 experiencing homelessness are in a family with children, and we have seniors in their 80s sleeping on the street. The number of people experiencing homelessness at any point in time in Kings County is on the rise. We've experienced a 22% increase in just 1 year. Yet we aren't alone. The Central Valley is experiencing increases in every county, with Fresno County leading the charge with a 45% increase. The reason for the increase is that more people are entering the homeless service system. Just 3 years ago, 542 people entered homelessness for the first time. 2 years ago, that number rose to 702. Just last year, 1,117 people entered homelessness for the first time, a 106% increase from 2017. Homelessness puts an enormous strain on public resources and emergency services. It's important to keep in mind that the numbers I've just shared are prior to the COVID pandemic. Unemployment, underemployment, and increased medical expenses will only compound housing instability issues in the months to come. Studies from across the U.S. have shown that permanent supportive housing is an effective tool in ending homelessness. Permanent supportive housing is affordable housing where participants pay 30% of their income towards rent. It is combined with an array of supportive services geared toward increasing one's self-sufficiency, health, and well-being. It can also lead people to use fewer emergency services and thereby help to reduce public costs. The Homekey project put before you today is a crucial part of the solution. The $3.5 million state grant to acquire this property and convert it to affordable housing will increase the number of permanent supportive housing units in Kings County by 92%. It takes a collaboration of public, nonprofit, and private entities and an aggregate of funding sources to make meaningful and lasting impact on homelessness. Project Homekey is a prime example of the much-needed resources that will move the needle in Kings County. I respectfully request that the board vote to approve the resolution accepting grant funding from the state for this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Melanie, do we have anybody else? No other hands up?
Mr. Chair, before you move on, I'd like to take a moment to call out our Chief Administrative Officer, Rebecca Campbell, who was recently elected to be president of the California Association of County Executives. And as such, she has clearly gained the confidence of her colleagues around the state and continues to do a great job representing the county statewide.
It's secretary treasurer, and it eventually will be president in 2 years.
2 years. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
So people must be looking up to you and expect a lot more out of you. So
Yes.
yeah, you'll be high demand here shortly. So,
Thank you.
And she's a veteran.
and she's a veteran. Yeah.
Happy Veterans Day.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on now to approval of minutes. Before on that item, we're going to do item 5A, approval of minutes. Report out from closed session on November 3rd, 2020, on November 10th, 2020. Council would like to address that?
I would like to just inform the public that the board has taken no reportable actions either out of closed session at its November 3rd meeting or during closed session earlier today.
Thank you. Item B, approval of minutes from October 27th, 2020, regular meeting.
So move it, Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Fagundes. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes. 5 in favor, and we approve as presented. Item C, approval of the minutes from November 3rd, 2020, regular meeting. Moved by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Fagundes. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves,
Yes.
Supervisor Valley,
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes.
Yes. 5 in favor. We have approved as presented. At this time, we are going to move on to employee recognition. And we have Henny Ring, presentation to acknowledge employees who have completed various milestones of county service. Henny, are you there?
I am here. Can you see me?
I see a award service placard on the screen.
Oh, okay. Well, I also have video up, but if nobody wants to see my video, I'm okay with that. So.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. Henny Ring from Human Resources. I'm here today for the County Service Awards presentation. There has been a Kings County Service Award program in place since 1977 to recognize full-time employment service of county employees. Service awards are presented to employees after the equivalent of 5 years of continuous full-time service and in increments of 5 years thereafter. At the end of each fiscal year, Human Resources identifies those employees who become eligible to receive service awards during the previous fiscal year. So we calculated every year to see who is going to receive an award. Each eligible recipient receives a certificate indicating the number of years of service they have completed. Each awardee is also permitted to select an award to which they are entitled based on years of service completed. I believe it's at 10 years and up where you can receive a gift if you choose. Awards are provided in the form of either cash or a memento based on the years of qualified service. In order for the county to process the cash awards at the same time, those awards were added last week, Friday, to their November 6th paycheck. We do have the gifts already in the office. So what we'll do later is HR will send out an email later with the instructions on how anybody can pick up their gifts. So we're still working on that piece. Today, we have several departments that are going to be recognized. I think Kiri is helping me out with the PowerPoint. Kiri, can you show the 5-year employees? Are they there?
Not yet.
The curtain is open, but nobody's home.
There it comes.
Oh, it's slow. Okay. All right. So we have quite a few for the 5-year group. There are 98 recipients.
Gee.
Yes, we have quite a bit. I think there's another screen on that, Kiri, if you can show that. Okay, there we go. That's second page of 5 years, so 98 on that. I'm not going to read off all those names unless you want me to.
Please not.
Okay, our 10-year group. We have 20 recipients.
Wow.
Yeah. So okay. So if we go to our 15 years. And if you kind of look over to the bottom left, you'll see we have our CAO who's receiving 15 years as well. So I want to call it Rebecca. It's a big day for you, Rebecca. We got 15 years.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone.
Okay. So 20 years. In our 20-year group, we have 28 people. Awesome.
A lot of longevity.
Yes. And if we can go to our 28 5 years. So this last slide is going to show our 25 years, our 30 years, our 35 years, and we have a 40 years today.
Wow. So
yeah, that's pretty amazing. Our 25 years recipients, I'm just going to call them off in their departments. After I read off all these names, then we'll start over, and some department heads will be speaking on the awardees today. Today, for our 25 years, we have Rosie Alvarez from Human Services, Mary Cruz Clement from Human Services. We have Sherry Long from the Sheriff's Office. We also have 25 years of one of our own Board of Supervisors, Joe Neves. Congratulations.
Good job, sir.
We also have Brenda Olvera from Human Services. Our Sheriff, Dave Robinson, is on there as well for 25 years.
Good job, sir.
We have Matthew Scott from Fire Department, Heather Stivers from Probation, and Terrence Wilson from Sheriff's Office. I'm going to read off the 30 years first. 30 years is Shirley Alves from JTO. We have Mary Costa from Sheriff's Office, Darren Ellis from Sheriff's Office, Annette Fry from Human Services, Ida Guzman from Human Services, and Angela Morris from Child Support Services. We have one recipient for 35 years. That is Dwayne Cooper from Public Works or Roads Division. Awesome. And then our top billing here today for 40 years is Alan Hamola from Probation. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start off with a presentation going to be for Board of Supervisors. Doug Verboon, I believe you're going to speak on behalf of Joe Neves, and then as well as for the Sheriff, for Dave Robinson as well.
How much do I pay?
Am I speaking for the sheriff too? Because yeah, that would be good because that means I am his boss. So.
Oh.
All right, Supervisor Neves, if you stand up, please.
I need to go to the restroom. So
you always have a saying. I gotta be careful here.
Yeah, be careful. You're gonna have to take that class again.
We'll keep our distance. Supervisor Neves, 25 years is a long time, and we respect what you've taught us and what we have lived with over the years. You've done a great job by all your wisdom. Sometimes you go down a rabbit hole, but sometimes you lead us in the right direction. We appreciate that.
When you get old, that's what you do.
Yeah. And 25 years is a long time to be in one spot. And, you've done
25 years of service, about 15 years of work.
15 years of work. Yeah. Well, you always have a gang hat that you pass out to your people. You're leaving the gang. So I couldn't give you that. But I gave you that. So I have this nice official, this is, if you have a farm labor contractor in your field, the labor contractor has the big hat. And he wears it. He's in charge. He just stands back and watches everybody work. He really doesn't do any work at all, but I kind of fit your profile. So Joe, I'd like to honor you with this farm labor contractor hat with your branding on it, with the Holstein print and the county seal provided by Supervisor Forgiveness.
Perfect. Good job. Thank you. Thanks.
How come I never got a hat?
25 years.
You gotta wait.
25
12 years. Hat makes you almost
my father time. So back about 30 years ago, me and Chuck were driving.
Me and Truck, huh?
Me and Joe were driving truck together, dropping fertilizer and corn and wheat and barley, sitting in line, and look at us now.
Yeah.
Right. Now you're just drinking barley.
Yeah.
So am I doing one for the sheriff too? The sheriff, I don't have a gift for you because I did look for a gift. And I was going to get you an outfit, and it was a Woody from Toy Story, and I said that wouldn't be appropriate. But we do respect all the years you've provided to the county. I know your history. I know you started at the bottom, and you worked your way up, and now you're the sheriff of the county, and people respect you, people admire you, and we adore for who you are and what you represent. And thank you for your service. And I couldn't ask for a better sheriff in all the counties and all the states of California. I think you're the president of this California State Sheriff's Association, and that's well respected among all sheriffs in the state of California. And that is something to be honored here in King County. We're a small county, but we have a big voice and we're a powerful person in charge. So, Sheriff, thank you very much, and I hope you continue a few more years. I think you will. You're still young, but knowing his history, I know he worked in the district attorney's office for a short time, and I'd go see my wife when she worked there. She had a nice desk out front, and there were these two yahoos in the back and a little closet. There was a closet converted into an office, and Dave was in this closet. And he was stuck in there for a couple of years. So it's kind of funny to see him now in charge and having his voice be heard because he was put in the closet for a while.
Bigger office.
A bigger office now and
Bigger closet.
a little more authority. And you can't be locked in. I think you can be locked in the other office. So
Now he locks you up.
now he locks you up. He's come a long way. He brings a lot of experience with him. I mean, the fact that he worked in Kmart and now he's the sheriff. I mean, he just imagine what you could put in the middle of there. And we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Oh, it's right, King Blake. I think got fired though. Yeah, well, we call it what you want, but you're not working there. No. You took advantage of the opportunity. Okay. Thank you, Sheriff.
Can we add a
Didn't
little
get you a
bit?
Woody outfit. I almost hit order. It was adult size. Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah. He's a master cow print because it had the vest. All right.
Can I add to that? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
you did a good job. I just want to say when I saw the 25 years and the sheriff's name comes out, I looked over at him because he's a young looking man, and I did not. That caught me off guard that you've been here 25 years. That is, yeah, no. That blew me away. So thank you for all your service as well. And then the supervisor, Joe Nez, that 25 years, not only is it amazing in public service, but the fact that every 4 years, the people gave you those 4 years right there. And so that's not that you came, you got an interview and you got a job here and you stayed here. That, to me, that's like 50 years because the people said, we want Joe Neves on the job. And so that puts you statewide. That 25 years of service statewide, I don't think there's more than a handful of people that are on that list with you. So thank you for your service, Supervisor Neves, to Kings County.
Okay, very well said. Good. Okay, Supervisor Peterson, you good? Okay.
Can you wake him up?
Okay.
We're going to move on to the next presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to move on to Matthew Scott with 25 years. I believe Fire Chief Bill Lynch is going to speak on his behalf.
Hey. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Bill Lynch for the Fire Department. Captain Scott is what I would say probably the quintessential employee in the fire department. Started with this agency in the early 90s as a volunteer with the dream of getting hired as an FAE at that time with our agency. In 2013, I had the distinct privilege of promoting him to fire captain, and it's probably one of the best choices I ever made. Matt is a quintessential employee. He follows the policies, follows the rules, regulations, understands the fire service, understands the dangers of the fire service, and knows how to treat people fairly. I wish I had a dozen more like him. He is he's an example for all people young people trying to become firefighters. How he came through the promotional process and got to where he's at, and I'm very proud to say that I had the chance to promote him because I had kind of mentored him just a little bit when I was with Hanford Fire. Also, we had a relationship through the Fire Academy, and I've known Matt for many years, and it doesn't seem like he's been there 25 years, but here he is. And it's a well-deserved reward. And I just want to say congratulations to Matt and congratulations to all of us for having employees like Matt in the fire service because they are dedicated and give 115, 125% every day of the week. So that's Matt Scott. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Matt, for your service. Appreciate your 25 years of service as well. All right, Henny, who's next?
Next would be Lance Lippincott from JTO, recognizing Shirley Alves with 30 years.
30 years. Morning, Lance.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and supervisors. I have Shirley Allison here with me. She's put in 30 years. Many people don't know because it's easy to see Jay or John Lane when he was here or myself out there doing stuff. But really the heart and soul of the EDC is actually Shirley. Not simply because everybody knows who she is and she does all of the hard work that lets us do everything else, but Shirley's involved in everything. And she does so with a good attitude. When I first came here, Shirley got swapped around on desks probably 4 different times. She came to my office, told me I needed to stop it. We stopped it and we went from there. Shirley is probably the heart and soul of the EDC, and it's been that way since the EDC came over to JTO. She has been the quintessential EDC member, and a lot of the success is attributed to her, even though she doesn't get the accolades. So thank you, Shirley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. I know that I've worked with you for about 10 years, and I appreciate your effort reaching out, make sure we're well informed with what goes on with EDC, and I duly appreciate that. We have a lot going on, and sometimes it takes someone that reaches out that extra touch to make sure, remind you of a meeting and remind you what your responsibilities are, and you do that. So thank you, 30 years of service, and thanks for keeping Lance in charge and pointing the right direction too. Okay, Henny.
Okay, next up will be Sonia Begay from Human Services. She's going to recognize her staff. Annette Fry with 30 years, Ida Guzman with 30 years, Rosie Alvarez with 25, Maricruz Clement with 25, and then Brenda Oliveira with 25 years.
Morning, Sonia. Make sure the green light's on.
Let me see. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sonia Begay, Human Services Agency. And I figured as the largest department, we should have the biggest number of staff. So I'm going to start with Rosie Alvarez. She's an eligibility worker who's been our eligibility worker for 26 years. Rosie has provided equal service to both her friends, coworkers, and her and our clients. She is compassionate and a strong believer in what she does. And one of my favorite quotes about Rosie that one of her managers said, and I'm not going to tell her who, and I know she's out there listening, and so are a number of her coworkers, is that she may be small, but she packs a big punch. She is actually very spirited, and one of the things that I remember about Rosie kind of the most is that she participates very actively in our booster activities, our Halloween fun, and when it comes to service, one story to share with you is for a number of years, we treated our Avenal site as an off-site service. And a couple of years ago, we were trying to make it a regular site. And she represented staff in trying to figure out how to balance the service to clients and service to her coworkers to design hours that provide the best need to the community. And really that compassion and that leadership is within all of us, regardless of the position. So she's been great, and I want to congratulate her for 25 years of service. The next one, the next person I want to recognize, and thank you for recognizing them, is Maricruz Clement. So there's few names in our department that everybody recognizes, and Maricruz is one of them. Well, she's in charge as a supervisor of welfare fraud investigation. Really, Maricruz is all things safety and security in our department. And there are few staff in our department that I talk to in the middle of the night, and she's one of them. And it has happened certainly more than once over the past few years. And I was actually had a similar reaction to a couple of these names because she really looks very young. And with her sassy blonde hair, I'm going, really? You've been around for 25 years? But she's great. She does have fun while she travels. And at the moment, one of her funnest things is enjoying her grandkid. Our next staff person that I want to recognize, I'm going to save Brenda for last. So I'm going to move her 30 years of service. Our department specialist, Annette Fry. Annette Fry has been in our department, started as an account clerk. I'm still surprised our fiscal staff haven't stolen her yet. And is currently supporting our employment and training office. She's probably the most experienced department specialist in clerical support. She's a whiz with spreadsheets and tracking things. And while she's moved around the department and supported social services and IHSS, I think she's landed in ETS and they have not let her go. And now that I've announced that she knows fiscal, I'm assuming next year or so she'll be moving there. And finally, before Brenda, I want to recognize Ida Guzman. So Ida is another name in our department that is recognized department-wide because Ida is all things tech support. But also, and while Ida is incredible when it comes to providing tech support to staff, when it comes to a Kelman system and multiple other, C4 system and multiple other kind of statewide system that we deal with and send tickets to the state. what IDA is really, really known for, other than resolving our case tickets, is being our leader of boosters. If there is fun to be had in HSA, it's organized by IDA in a very precise, fiscally responsible, and meticulous way. If she's roped you into cooking for HSA, it was IDA. If we've had events, it's been IDA. Actually, just recently, while we could not have our traditional Halloween fun, IDA organized boosters to organize a mask contest decoration. And we got to vote. IDA really is, while she may appear strict, she really is a heart of the agency and has done an incredible amount to support morale of staff. And then finally, I want to recognize Brenda Olvera, who's on vacation this week and might not be listening, though she might call in, who's really in charge of HSA. She was in charge of Bill Gandacker 14, 15, some years ago, then of Peggy Montgomery, and now of me. And I'm really not kidding. Brenda is the one that's in charge of the calendar and has an incredible amount of historical knowledge in our agency. There would be a thing that we're dealing with the system, and Brenda would pull an email that's 15 years old and say, 15 years ago we'd attempted this, and here's a solution. How she finds them, I don't know. But Brenda has certainly been an incredible person to work with. I admire her a great deal, and so do many other across the county. She's participated actively in a number of county activities and certainly in a number of HSA activities. And I genuinely couldn't survive without her, and want to recognize her 25 years of service and the last 5 years for me. And if she's on vacation and not listening, it's only because she's with her grandkid, which she adores. So those are the HSA employees. And I do want to say one last thing. I have hit my 5 years of supervisor nevs. I want a hat.
Well, thank you, Sonia. Appreciate that. And thank you to your staff for their commitment to dedication to serving our county and meeting this milestone. So thank you. Okay, Henny.
All right, next up is probation. Kelly Zuniga is going to speak regarding our top biller again, Alan Hamola, 40 years. That's amazing. Kelly, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, to the board. Kelly Zuniga, Chief Probation Officer. It gives me a great thrill to be able to say a few words about Alan Hamola. On November 6, 1979, the county made probably one of the best decisions it ever did in hiring Alan. Alan began his career as a clerk in the Human Services Agency and transferred to probation in 1986 as an account clerk and then promoted to accounting technician. The work Alan does far exceeds the minimum, and without him, none of us could accomplish what we do. There isn't a pre-sentence investigation, a probation violation, or any other report to court that doesn't have Alan's fingerprints on it. Alan is responsible for figuring out the extraordinarily complicated fines and fee schedule and accurately inputting that said information into our system. And not only that, he also has the ability to pull that information back out and provide our officers with quick, correct data that we can then provide to the court and our clients. In April of 2000, Alan was recognized as the Employee of the Quarter by the Board of Supervisors. However, I would contend that he has earned it far more quarters than that. His personnel file is filled with nothing but outstanding evaluations. Alan has worked for 4 different chief probation officers and has evidently reached his limit. Much to my sadness, Alan will be retiring at the end of December after providing excellent service to our community for 41 years. I am thrilled for him, and while we can never thank him enough for what he does, for his enthusiasm and his professionalism, no one will be able to take his place in our department or in our hearts, and he will be sorely missed. Thank you, Alan, for all you've done, and we wish you the very best in your next adventure. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Alan. 40 years of service is a great milestone, and we wish you all the best in your retirement years. Don't forget your knowledge. If you see us making a mistake, please feel free to call us back and keep us pointed in the right direction. We appreciate your service, and good luck in the future. Okay, anybody else? Oh,
Yes.
we got the Sheriff Robinson coming up here.
We have roads first. We're going to have Kevin McAllister or Dominic. I'm not sure who's going to be speaking regarding Dwayne Cooper, who has 35 years.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is Kevin. Can you hear me?
Oh, retirement.
Yes, Kevin, we hear you.
Oh, thank you. Dwayne Cooper. Well, what can you say about Dwayne Cooper? In October 3rd of 1984, Dwayne was hired as the road maintenance worker one for the princely sum of $5.82 an hour. Over the next 35 years, Dwayne has worked his way up through the ranks. And in August 12th of 2019, he was named the road superintendent for Kings County. I looked back through his personnel file and at some of the things that were said about him, and here are some of the things of note. Dwayne is a well-rounded employee that can perform a wide range of assignments. He's a skilled operator and is able to train personnel with specialty equipment. The roads crews respect him for his knowledge and skills concerning road and bridge maintenance. There's nothing in the roads division that Dwayne can't do. But when something always seems to happen that knocks you back on your heels. I received a letter one day from the State Bureau of Prisons wanting to talk to me about Dwayne Cooper. I know they're not called the Bureau of Prisons, but it sounds more ominous, and that's what went through my mind when I read it. As I read through the letter, after the initial shock, I was very pleased to read that the letter was from the warden of the Corporate State Prison, and he was praising Dwayne for his quick, prompt, efficient actions to remedy what the warden considered to be a safety issue on the road there in front of the prison, something that Supervisor Valley had also brought to our attention. So it was just another example of how well people think of Mr. Cooper. It's been my privilege to work with Dwayne during his career. He's worked hard and continues to work hard for the people of Kings County. He is most certainly an asset to the county. So congratulations, Dwayne, for 35 years, and I wish you well on your next 35 years in Kings County.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I don't know if it'll be another 35 years, but do my best.
Well, thank you, Kevin, for that presentation, and thank you, Dwayne, for your 35 years of service. I know that as I drive from one end of the state to the other, you go through different counties, and Kings County's roads are in fine shape. I know it's a constant battle, and you guys work hard to keep them up to snuff, to keep people happy. If people are unhappy, they will complain about the roads first, and we don't have a lot of complaints about our roads, and I know that we owe that to you. So thank you again for your service.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. Who's next, Henny?
Next will be Sheriff Robinson. I think he's going to speak on Darren Ellis.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dave Robinson, Kings County Sheriff. And so obviously there's a few names on the list that we're still hanging out. So good to see you're still hanging out too, Supervisor Ness. Yeah. So not going anywhere yet. I was wondering, Henny, am I the last one?
You are the last one, so you can take all the time that you want.
Well, I don't want to take a lot of time, but I was hoping to show Darren's picture if we could switch to the camera in the board chambers.
No Shave November.
I'm going to see if this works or not. You'll have to let me know.
Very distinguished. Whoa, you're going to have to get a lot closer than that.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. A little bit of it.
Is that from when he started or when he was a DARE officer?
That is today.
Yeah. Hey.
That is his photo today because he's participating in our No Shave November, and he usually has one of the coolest beards. But I noticed this year he's trying to compete with Joe Neves for one of the whitest beards. So I think he's going to have a role at Santa Claus this year because he's working the white part very well. Darren Ellis started with us March 26, 1990, and so he's just a little bit over his 30-year mark, coming up on his 31. So he's been here obviously the entire time that I have, and he's been a role model in our organization day in and day out. The guy never calls in sick. He's always at work, and he will literally do anything you ask of him without a single complaint. One of the biggest things that Darren has brought to our organization over about the last 15 to 17 years has been the school resource officer at Central Union School. And a few years ago, Ms. Campbell and I worked on a grant to get some funding for the school resource officers. And we actually lost some funding, and the school was adamant that they were going to have Darren Ellis back at their school, and they ponied up the funds to make sure that he got to come back while we were still working on the grant to try to continue his service out there. And when Superintendent Addington called me, he's like, look, we got to do whatever we can to make sure we retain him, because he's such a force at that school with the kids, teaching classes, and just really enjoys what he does there. Looking back over his evaluations over the last 30 years, he's constantly rated above standard and outstanding by any supervisor who supervises him. Easy to work with. He does a lot in our community as well. Prior to kind of the dynamics that we're going through in today's world, he coaches youth football. He's an avid sports fan, just really loves that. Recently, one of the most proudest things that I'm proud of him for is he started a Facebook page and it's called Positive Law Enforcement. And he only posts things that are positive about what law enforcement is doing in our local community and beyond. And it's a great page to go to if you just need to feel good about what really goes on in our world, in our law enforcement world, because he focuses on all the great things that the men and women of law enforcement do. And I'm really, really proud of him for that. He tells me the last few months that he is retiring soon, but he's moved his date several times so far. So now the latest rumor is sometime early spring he's going to retire. But we're going to miss him when he does. He can stick around as long as he wants to. Last year, as we get close to somebody retiring, I typically tell the person, like, hey, what kind of assignment would you like your last few months working here? Two reasons I do that is, one, in law enforcement, it's super dangerous, and I want to try to get them in a position where they can feel safe in their last few months so we don't have a tragedy occur towards the end of their career. And two, I'm so appreciate that they've spent an entire career at our organization that I want to give them an opportunity to just work kind of any assignment that they want to. And so his only request this last summer was not to put him on patrol, because he said it's hot out there in the summertime now for him. And so I said, no worries. And so he worked in admin for us this last summer, helping process CCW permits and other things. And I just really appreciate his day in and day out dedication to our community. So thank you very much, Darren, for everything you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Sheriff. And thank you, Darren. I appreciate your hard work and commitment to the county. And I also appreciate the fact that you bring in the sheriff's ability and have access to our younger generation. That's important to teach the younger generation that the sheriff's here to help and be your friend and understand the ins and outs of what makes a person a sheriff and why he's there and why not to be in fear of him. So I know that you worked with the DARE program for years. We were at Pioneer School and you were there all the time, and the kids just loved you. So we appreciate your service and dedication for the county, and we wish you all the best in your retirement. And as far as the beard goes, I know Supervisor Nev works hard at that. I think he goes to a special spa to get that color. So you might want to up your game on that one. I think he goes out of his way to look like that. So thank you again. Hey, Henny, we done?
That concludes our presentation. I want to thank all the employees today for their dedication and their multiple contributions and their years of service with the county. They do definitely make it a great place to work. I apologize for the virtual because, again, we're in this situation, but next year, hopefully we'll be back in person and we can do it again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Henny, and thanks for your presentation. Actually, it felt pretty good to have it on the slideshow, and appreciate all the hard work that went into that. It made us feel like we were there, and hope all my words go out to the employees of the county that have committed their time and service to making our county better. And thank you again. So look forward to working with you in the future. Okay, we're going to go on now to consent calendar. Before I start the consent calendar, we are going to go to item number 3, B3, and there's been some changes. We're going to update and pull the last 3 terms only goes to item P, not to R. So last 3 items on that item will be just ignored. And if you guys would like to pull an item on a consent calendar, it can be pulled by a board member. If not, I'll accept your motion as amended.
Move as amended, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Supervisor Neves.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Valley. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley? Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes. Okay, 5 in favor. We have approved as presented and amended. We're going to move on now to regular agenda items. And before we go to regular agenda items, we're going to go to item C2. And we're going to pull item C2 from the Public Works Department agenda. And we're also going to pull item E, and that's from administration. So with those two items pulled, we'll start off with item A, behavioral health. And I think we have Untong Perry.
Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Ma'am.
Good morning, Chairman and the Board of Supervisors. Untong Perry from Kings County Behavioral Health. This morning, the department is asking your board for an approval of the new service agreement with Inspiring Pathways, INC, for short-term residential therapeutic program services. In 2015 and 2016, the Assembly Bills 403 and 1997 were signed into the law, allowing the state to implement provision of the Continuum of Care reform. This reform included the creation of a new residential licensing category, the short-term residential treatment program, to provide short-term, specialized, and intensive treatment, 24-hour care and supervision to youth and non-minor dependents placed in their agency, including the specialty mental health services. Inspiring Pathway is a nonprofit organization located in the city of Hanford, currently operating under the California Department of Social Services. This agreement is a part of the Medi-Cal certification process for them, which will allow for them to provide the mental health services for Kings County residents, but also to other counties. The contractor currently operates a residential treatment program for females who have been placed in out-of-home care in Kings County. This program is specifically designed to serve 6 pregnant and or parenting females ages 12 to 17 and their infants. They also provide the placement services of a non-minor dependents. Their services are to develop a treatment plan which addresses a mental health impairments by interventions and support necessary to improve their symptoms. When medically necessary, they will also provide mental health treatment programs such as crisis intervention, mental health services, and case management. Additionally, they will also provide services such as assessment, plan development, individual, family, and group therapies and rehabilitation, targeted case management, and discharge plannings. Their services will be provided 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and currently the facility is fully occupied. There's no fiscal impact to the county general funds. This agreement is for the 2 fiscal years, 2020-21 and 2021-22, based on a fee for services and the total cost not exceeding the amount of $235,000 per year. The revenue and expenses for the programs are in the budget unit 420000, titled Mental Health. The agreement has been reviewed and approved by the County Council as to form. Thank you. I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chong. Any questions or comments? None?
Move for adoption.
Motion made by Supervisor Neves, second by Supervisor Fagundes. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley?
Aye.
Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes. 5 in favor. We approve the item as presented. Thank you very much. Item B, we're going to go fire
Thank
department.
you.
William Lynch. Morning.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Bill Lynch, Kings County Fire Department. If you can remember back to the good old days of 2015, we actually negotiated an automatic aid agreement with the city of Hanford, which is basically a boundary drop for a given geographical area that allows our agency and their agency to respond to 2 calls together. This automatic aid agreement actually helps with ISO ratings and getting the minimum number of firefighters on a scene at any given time. So It is a valuable part of our response and our current response to the populated areas. This enhancement that we're talking about right now today is actually an update where we respond the closest available unit. We no longer have to allow dispatch to call a particular station. It's as the units move about, whether it be a Hanford unit or a Kings County unit, dispatch is advised of that or knows that. And if there's a unit closer to the incident or the call that comes in, that's how we're going to dispatch. So it's actually an improvement based upon our current automatic aid agreement. This has been reviewed by County Council and has been approved, and it will supersede any other automatic agreement we have with the City of Hanford. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief Lynch. I know this agreement was very much needed in the community, that people's insurance that were outskirts of the area, their insurance was out of control, and they brought the ISO rating, changed it to where it was in their favor. So thank you again for working on that. Moved by Supervisor second by Supervisor Neves. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley? Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson?
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
5 in favor. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Okay, we're going to go on now to item C, Public Works Department, Dominic Tyberski. And again, we pulled item 2, so we're just going to deal with item number 1.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dominic Tyberski, Public Works Department. I'm before you this morning to request implementation of parking restrictions along 3rd Street from 9th Avenue easterly to the city-county line. Section 23-34 of the Kings County Code of Ordinance allows the Board of Supervisors by minute order to impose parking restrictions. And as such, the City of Hanford, in response to requests from local businesses, has implemented a similar no parking zone in this area, which was effective November 5th, last Thursday. The issue was brought to their attention due to safety concerns brought forth by the businesses in the area, as some of their entrances were blocked, and at times cars were parked in a manner that was obstructing safe passage along the roadway. So the City of Hanford, as I said, has already established the no parking zone in their portion. They've already placed signs. In an effort to remain consistent along this roadway, the city requested that the county take the same action. Public Works does support this action, and the signs would be placed by the city at no cost to the county. If approved by your board, the no parking zone in the county would be effective immediately, and CHP would be notified so they might begin enforcement. So at this point, I'd like to open it to any questions. I'd be happy to try to answer.
Thank you, Dominic. Any questions or comments? Motion to move by Supervisor Fagundes, second by Supervisor Neves. My only question is, I'm assuming they work with the businesses out there to get them to understand why they can't have the cars on the road?
Absolutely. In fact, the request came from the businesses that had concerns. There is ample parking for the employees on the sites of the businesses. I can't speak as to why they elected to park in the street, but it has become an issue, and the businesses are in support of this.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves?
Yes.
Supervisor Valley? Supervisor Verboen?
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson? Supervisor Fagundes?
Yes.
Okay, item passes 5 in favor. Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you.
We're going to go on now to item number D, Human Service Agency, Sonia Begay, and she's here in the audience today. So, good morning, Sonia.
Good morning, Sonia Begay, Human Services Agency. And I'm here to request your board's approval for Homekey program authorizing resolution. Lisanne is going to help me with the PowerPoint. We can start with the slide 1 and move it to the actual display. Lisanne, there you go. Next slide. Okay. So I want to just quickly reference our homeless count, mostly really to point out that for Project Homekey, it really is less about our PIT count than about the general population. So we've pointed the PIT count, and I do think part of the reason, and PIT is a, point in time homeless count, it's because of our project Homekey, where this count is a lot more significant, is why we keep focusing on it. But there is a larger population really that's impacted by low-income housing in Project Homekey. So just as a reminder, our point-in-time count happens once a year. All jurisdictions, when it comes to homeless count, use it. While it's not 100% accurate to reflect the number of homeless people in a county, it certainly is a good proxy, especially for the unsheltered homeless. And our counts have been increasing the past couple of years. From 2019 to 2020, our number increased by 22%. So we have 305 individuals that were in the PID count, both adults and children. And about 33% of them have been homeless for less than a year. About 31% are disabled, and about 9% are veterans. And then the age group spans that are 55 plus, and older population is 21%. Children 17 and younger is 15%, and then adults are 6% of 18 to 24. So, and 25 to 55 is about 56% of that population. However, for Project Homekey, what's more relevant is, listen, if you can go to the next page, please. What's more relevant for Project Homekey is the low-income population and housing needs. Homekey project is for creation of permanent housing for individuals who are experiencing homelessness and individuals at risk of homelessness. So our homeless population is the 305 PID count. I do believe that's understated because just in our agency alone, we assist about 900 individuals a year with sheltering and housing subsidies. So they would technically be included in that homeless population. However, at risk of homelessness, so that's that other piece of the definition, is a much more significant number in our county. And the definition is really anyone who's unstably housed, live in a home of another due to economic reasons, lives with subsidized housing or is sheltered. So it really assumes the homeless population too, but it's also the population whose annual income is 30% or less of AMI, area median income. And for that, so if we take that broader group, that is 26% of households in our county, or 11,282 households, and about 37,000 people would actually qualify for low-income housing. So while our Homekey project and shelters are about truly street homeless, Homekey is about providing low-income housing to individuals that are both homeless and in risk of homelessness, which in our county is a significant number. I do want to share with you that the average rent in Kings County is $971, and it's a 6% increase over the last year. But in Hanford, where it's our biggest population that is housing insecure, that average rent is $1,129, 13% of which is an increase over the prior year. And only 6% of our units can be rented for between $500 to $700. Why this is significant is what is considered affordable for a population that lives on 30% of AMI is a rent of $606. So the low income, the rental market out there for low income individuals is incredibly low. Our homeless collaborative gap analysis is really permanent housing is one of our biggest needs, but actually a much better report on housing needs in our county really comes from the housing element report that was presented to your board in 2016. Listen, if you can go to the next slide, please. This report is incredible and has a wealth of information, and your board adopted it as via resolution in 2016. And I just want to pick on a couple of highlights. The report itself is 134 pages, and I only have one slide on it, I promise. 48% of our households are renters. That was true in 2016, and it's in checking the current data, we're still about there. Of our units that exist within the county, about 43% were renter occupied at the time, 6% were vacant. Our vacancy rates have dropped over time, and especially currently. Extremely low income households, so the 30% of AMI, at the time, the income limit was $24,250, and affordable rent was considered to $606. That AMI is a little higher now, but at the time, almost 21% of the households and estimated 27,000 individuals were impacted. So these numbers really corroborate, the numbers have grown in the current year, but the number of individuals in our county each year that need access to low-income housing has actually increased. At the time, the report lists every single available unit in the county that's considered low-income units. There were 2,442. The same report had the PIT count analysis. In 2015, our PIT count was 227 compared to the 305 in the current year. And this is the first report where I actually saw identified units related to the homeless population. And at the time, they were identifying 75 emergency shelter beds that were needed in our county, 22 transitional housing beds, and 80 permanent supportive housing beds. In addition to other kind of goals that were adopted, there was a quantified objective for the additional housing construction. Now it's for 8-year period, but that 8-year period, the objective for our county was 4,055 units in extremely low, very low, and low income housing category. Now, this resolution is a collaboration of City of Avenal, Corcoran, Hanford, and Lemoore. So the 4 jurisdictions, in addition to the county, adopted the resolution. And if you can go to the next page, how these 4,055 units spread are really 324 in unincorporated area, 253 in Avenal, 376 in Corcoran, 1,918 in Hanford, 1,184 in Lemoore, for a total of 4,055. These are goals, they're objectives. And I don't know if this is the right count or not, but certainly a number of experts who produced the report recommended it. Each year, our community development agency produces a report that basically provides an update to the state of how we're doing. And while I have not gathered, and Greg Gatzke is going to help me with that, the information from Avenal, Corcoran, Hanford, and Lemoore yet, because I do think because they adopted themselves, they are the ones that are reporting their annual progress to the state. Our progress for the past 4 years is 31 units out of 324. There's many reasons why we don't get to build as fast as we need, and one of them is funding. But certainly what these reports point to is a significant need of low-income housing. Next page, please. So there are parallel efforts. I'm sorry, next slide. Thank you. There are parallel efforts, and I really do want to distinguish them here, that are going on. One is shelter and shelter replacement. Shelter replacement is all about homeless, truly street homeless, and it is going to impact about 800 individuals or so in our county. Our project Homekey is dealing with the sheltering of the homeless. We do have a work group going that's working on a Homekey replacement. I am hoping to do at least the first report to your board in your very next board meeting, because we do need to find, our goals are really to find something that's lower cost, still meets the COVID executive order requirements, and can also long-term double as this longer short-term solution. But today's presentation, it is not about Homekey, it's about permanent housing and Homekey. So this is really a larger problem that we need to solve that impacts 37,000 individuals. And for Project Homekey applications, we applied for 2 different applications. One was the Stardust, which from the state is currently in a reservation status. The second one is Kings Triangle Courtyard. Well, we're still actually getting questions from the state on Kings Triangle Courtyard. We're still on a wait list. There is no other current project that we're working on. And while there is an upcoming application timeline for No Place Like Home, it truly is an application. Even under the best of circumstances, that project will take a couple of years to execute. Next slide. So I want to give you a couple of key facts on Homekey, just as a reminder. So it is about permanent housing. The project types that were allowed was acquisition and rehab of various housing types, apartment buildings. But we had, in consideration of the projects, we had to, if we were taking over current apartment buildings, we had to provide replacement properties. So that was a concern. It is administered by California Department of Housing and Community Development, and there were $600 million available statewide. The expenditure deadlines, which we knew from the beginning, were because of the CARES Act funding, December 30th of 2020. Next slide. So some of the key state timelines were that this project, the NOFA, the Notice of Funding, was released on July 16th. We had between July 16th and August 13th for applicants' pre-application consultations, which we completed with the state. The application was available July 22nd, and what was significant is that the priority applications were to submit projects by August 13th. While the projects had till 29th to submit the application, really from all of our consultations from the state, it was because it was a competitive process across the state, we knew if we didn't make the application by August 13th, we would lose out. Our two applications were submitted, one on August 8th, one on August 10th. And it was the one of August 8th that has been in a reservation status. State still plans to redeploy funding in November of 2020 from the projects that were awarded. I don't know how anybody executes from that point to December, but December expenditure timeline has been is one of the kind of key items in this project. Next slide. So I want to share with you our own process of what we've gone through to get to these two projects. We started our project vetting in June, and who's been involved in that is King's Gospel Mission, CART, and Upholdings, meetings with these entities, our Housing Authority, Champions, KCAO, HEART team, and then there was a county team of staff that actually included our sheriff and Ed, Hill, Lisa, Lance, Rebecca, and our county council, Jim Erb, Greg Gatzka, and Kevin McAllister, who actually, by the way, still participates in our work groups, even though he's retired. Get more emails from Kevin now. I love it. But this team actually looked at 11 projects that we were initially looking at and dwindled it down to final two that were ultimately recommended. In addition to that, other organizations who both help with funding and have homeless services, King's Tulare Homeless Alliance meetings, discussed Homekey project, and then the Homeless Collaborative in 3 different times discussed some of these projects. Next slide. We had a number of advisory calls with the state, and ultimately of the 11 projects considered, number of them, which were motel and hotel purchases, we contacted all 24 motels in our county and saw who was interested and then vetted them. There were 5 apartment complexes that were considered. Macon Elementary School, for a minute there, we were competing, so was KCAO, and so were the other entities for this particular property, and well, both us and KCAO lost that. And even we've considered repurposing of Samuel's home and had discussions with Champions about that. Ultimately, based on requirements from the NOFA and what we thought was likely to be funded, what we narrowed the projects down to, which were ultimately applied for, was the Stardust conversion in Kings Triangle Courtyard. I do want to say that while we considered requirements of the NOFA, because that was the only thing that's available, we really did look at that these two projects were good projects to recommend, even if this funding wasn't available. I presented that to your board on August 4th, and you gave us a verbal approval to apply pending all the follow-up documentation. So this is a piece of one here today. Next slide. So just a couple of key things on Stardust. It would be taking this motel and converting it to studio apartments. What the NOFA, Homekey NOFA allows is all of the acquisition costs and the purchase value. We can include any site improvements and expenditures that occur, but those that occur prior to December 30th. Part of our application required plans for interim housing use, timeline for conversion to permanent housing, and then ongoing operations and rental subsidies. Next slide. And have just a couple of pictures for you on, and key details on this property. It is on 8595 Lacey Boulevard. It's 22 existing hotel rooms, and it has a structure, which is really an apartment / lobby of 1,015 square feet. It's a 3-bedroom apartment. It's about half a mile from Costco, and one good thing about it is on-demand cart services. What we would be proposing, next slide, is essentially to have 22 studios apartments. The structure that is there would be used for on-site services, and we would have KCAO staff basically reside on premises 24/7. Two units just based on requirements would be accessible to persons with mobility disabilities, and 1 unit would be accessible to persons with hearing or vision disabilities. The rehab of the project to convert from actual motel rooms to apartments, we have through the application for 3 years to accomplish. And that piece is really important because while we would have an ability to have a dual use for that 3 years. So I want to do those couple highlights, go through the current use through ultimate use. Next slide. Okay. So current use, 100% of this facility is currently on a lease with the county, and we're using 100% of the rooms at $95 a day for sheltering street homeless. So we are using it as a shelter. Previously to our agreement, we were using this motel and many others for CalWorks homeless placement at $85 a day. And then in addition to that, because none of these institutions were fully utilized, they would be long-term rentals for low-income residents or daily room rentals. And I don't know the rates for those. What would ultimately, if we executed this project, next slide, what we would do is from 2021, so January of 2021 through end of 2023, the purchase would have been executed. The owner and operator would be KCAO, and we would have an operational agreement with KCAO. They would provide on-site services, so would HSA, and we would have a partnership with behavioral health, and JTO to provide other accessible services. Now, while most apartment complexes don't come with our staff and provision of services, it would be ideal to place more vulnerable population here, connect them with services, and help people access self-sufficiency. In the dual purpose for the first 3 years while we're slowly converting is that we can, from day one, continue to operate as non-congregate shelter and stop utilizing that $95 a day. And as we convert the rooms to apartments, then the individuals really become renters and they sign a lease like in any other apartment. But giving us time, but what we've asked the state is essentially 3 years to accomplish this. It gives us the time for both that conversion funding, and also it gives us an ability to continue utilizing this facility as a non-congregate shelter without that expensive price tag per day while we're meeting our COVID requirements. Ultimately, though, next slide, at the end of 2023, we would have our conversion completed. The owner and operator would remain KCAO, but now they're an owner of an apartment complex essentially, and renting the units to low-income residents of the county. In our agreement with the state, our state standard agreement is for 5 years only. There is a requirement for us to do a restricted deed for the use of the facility for 55 years, but really our agreement with the state lasts only 5 years. We would intend to restrict it based on the NOFA for that larger population, though my hope is that in our referrals, we really could continue to use this facility to serve our lowest income residents when it comes to permanent housing. The operational funds and rental subsidies for the individuals who need them would still be available like in any other programs, but the intent really would be that individuals on SSI, those with Section 8 vouchers, those who are just low income and can pay the rent themselves, all of those mix of incomes would be available. While it's only 22 units, it certainly would increase the stock of available housing that we need currently. I will tell you in a project, Homekey, which is kind of how these things keep interrelating, we now have individuals where we have identified vouchers or funding, and where we're struggling is truly finding a place to rent. So they're remaining in the rooms while we're trying to find available housing for individuals. The final slide, next slide, is our overall timeline, but the most critical step for us to move from this reservation point to an award is execution and the purchase of the actual property. But step prior to that is your board's approval of the actual resolution to apply. So I'm here today with that request. Next slide is my request today is to adopt the Homekey project authorizing resolution for the application and participation in this project. This is a requirement just to move to that next status. I do want to point out that we had to list for the state the dollar amount that we would accept. While our initial application was for $2.5 million for the acquisition and $300,000 for operating funds, what the resolution states is $3.5 million. Now that is at the state's advice because they will ultimately reimburse neither of those amounts. They will reimburse the actual expenditures. And if we don't have a dollar amount that's high enough, if we end up having actual expenditures that are higher, they would cap it at our maximum resolution. So hence the increase. I do want to let you know that in our previous couple of discussions, we have reached out to the state and asked to add those adjacent properties because of the parking lot expansion. And we have now received a written approval from the state that we can add that. That wasn't in our original application, but if we could execute that purchase as well, they would reimburse us for it. Also, any additional due diligence documents, certainly staff time. Carrie from County Counsel's office has spent a lot of time with us, and we haven't included that necessarily cost in our note, but all of those costs would be reimbursable. So that's why we listed the higher amount on the resolution, so we could pick up all the costs necessary. Ultimately, we would adjust the budget and receive only the actual expenditures, but we need that cap to be higher than what our original project. The resolution also asks you to authorize me to sign and execute a standard agreement. The standard agreement, we don't have the final one. We would not get the final one until the project is actually fully awarded. But all the terms and conditions that are in there have already been reviewed by council, and that's why that piece is included in there. So that concludes my presentation, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Sonia. Appreciate that. Very lengthy discussion. I didn't know that we would be here 2 weeks ago. We had this discussion last time. We had a big ask and a lot of hoops to jump through. And so I want to thank Sonia's staff for jumping through the hoops and her leading it. I know it's a tough time for everybody to get together when you can't get together, but Supervisor Neves had a good idea about acquiring a property next door for additional parking and expansion. And we were able to achieve that, I think, yesterday. I got a phone call from the state last night. They're watching us right now. They're hoping that we approve this. It's the 4/5 vote today. So we need everybody's attention on this. This is very important for our county. This is our first step to achieve affordable housing and also help the homelessness out. We need to start applying to some of these rules that the state puts on us, even though against our wishes or not, we have to do it. We don't want our homeless rate to increase from higher than what it is today. I think we're doing a pretty good job. It's also, I don't know if Sonia touched on it, but if we do this, we'll have access to more CDBG funding. So we need to make sure that we follow some of the rules that are in play for us today so that we have access for more funding for other projects such as curb gutters and sidewalks or fire trucks, whatever we need it for in the future. So, it's part of the game we got to play. So are there any questions?
Mr. Chairman, I don't see it outlined as a 4/5 vote on the agenda.
I don't either, but it has to do with money. So I'm assuming it has to be a 4/5 vote.
I thought it was just resolution today.
So once it comes to adjusting our budget, so I will need to be back to you guys 2 more times. We did not do a budget resolution today, so I don't believe it needs to be a 4/5 vote today. I would appreciate one, but when we adjust the budget, it did not seem appropriate to adjust the budget by $3.5 million because I truly don't know what our actual expenditures are. So we will be back for the budget resolution once we've actually tallied the expense, and quite honestly, until we negotiate the sale of the property, that really will be a big driver of it. So we will be back to adjust the budget for that, and that will be the 4/5 vote. And so that's one time I need to come back. And also for the your approval of the purchase of the property. All of these are steps to execute to move us towards an award. So it's necessary. We do have to submit this resolution to the state where our verbal support doesn't count as the way this resolution does, but the 4/5 is really the budget adjustment.
Thank you. Yeah, I just assume it was 4/5 because it had to do with money, and I probably might have missed it, but
I thought it was going to be 2.
Yeah,
but I didn't see it.
So are there any questions or comments for discussion? I know Supervisor Funes had some concerns. Are you have any concerns today, or?
I'm just not in favor of all this, especially where they're going with this. I think there's other ways to do this. I think we're looking, all we're looking at here right now is funding. I don't agree with that. I think that the taxpayers have, they've got no say here in this. They're just throwing in their lap, and I don't think it's right. So I can't pick it up.
Well, the funding's there, whether we use it or not. So we're going to take advantage of it, or some other county's going to take advantage of it for us. And then we'll be punished later on, probably with other projects as the CDBG and not taking from our home. So this is a good start without taking the money out of our local taxpayers' pockets to fund it out of general fund. This has come from the state, so it's spread out over all 58 counties, not just one county. So it's a perfect opportunity to take care of the homeless. I mean, we all know that there's some out there that could probably that don't need to be homeless, that choose to be there, but a lot of them also need some help. So we want to help those that need the help first. And I think Sonia's staff has the right to do that. So any further questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, no, I respect. Oh, go ahead. Sue Peterson. Let's go to
Peterson?
Sue Peterson.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the comments today, and there's been a whole lot of comments from public and otherwise, and I think one of the significant things that's lost in this discussion, and it seems to be always lost from the state perspective, is that when the state updates its development codes and places exorbitant requirements, it affects affordable housing, and that's why there isn't affordable housing in California. So, it's the same scenario, when the state looks at minimum wage. How many jobs are lost each time, we raise the minimum wage? But, there were some other comments made today, and I just, following up with Sonia, with the point in time count and, specific to transient status and verification, how do we verify that the people that we're talking about are actually members of our community? They aren't moving into the area and then counted. I mean, what timeline or status do you have for proofing homeless verification that these people are actually members of our community?
Our documentation it's really HMIS system, our homeless management information system. Point in time count, the reason I struggle with it really is the 1 day counts, and it only counts people who are unsheltered, so people on the street and people in known shelters. So it misses a significant portion of the population that my department and so do others kind of subsidize through that. That said, for those who are counted, they are recorded in our homeless management information system. And every time we place someone, whether it's through my agency, Champions, KCAO, Behavioral Health, there's about 12 agencies in the county that include information in HMIS on homeless individuals. We have to produce paperwork to actually certify that somebody has been homeless for a number of these funding sources. For a year, our biggest resource for that tends to be our HMIS, where we've recorded the same individual over time. The other group that really is helpful is law enforcement, because people are cited, and Hanford PD actually provides us this data. People tend to be cited for trespassing, and they can, time over time, report that people have been around. They know their names. When I've walked with them, they recognize people over time. So we have probably in the high 80s, and HMIS data is more specific, are people who have been born and lived and their last permanent resident was Kings County. Do we have people transient from other counties? But even the Tulare County, because we're Kings Tulare Homeless Alliance, we're very hesitant to place even in Tulare, and they are to us. We really kind of keep our county borders. And partially the reason for that, well, there is some transient in this population, but it is minor compared to reality, is because services like Medi-Cal and CalFresh and any kind of issuances are county tied. And it is incredibly hard to transfer that. So we actually have very little transiency unless somebody gets arrested and just kind of stays here from a county. Between Avenal and Hanford, or Corcoran and Avenal, people stay within their own community mostly, and that's actually true for this population as well. year over year, our numbers are consistent, and our numbers in Hanford tend to be highest, and partially it's because concentration of services here is the highest.
Yeah. No, thank you. The other question, I guess, is that, you know, those that refuse service, and how do you help someone that refuses service or are required to still be counted in the PIT? You know, I mean, I know we've placed people in you know, this facility, and 2 days later they're gone and they're back out, you know, in the public. You know, those should be removed from the number. If they're not going to, it's either that or, you know, some other form of effect for those that refuse service, and yet we're still, are we still counting those?
We are. There is the approach to permanent housing is really, or sheltering is really counting everybody, and then service comes next. I will tell you, when I compare, so part of it is in Project Homekey becomes really, to me, the best comparison with our whole person care project of people's acceptance of services. When I looked at services for employment, and I concentrated only on three: employment, mental health, and substance abuse services, our acceptance of services by individual is much higher in all three categories in Project Homekey compared to whole person care. Now, whole person care has been operating for 2.5 years in our county. Homekey is in its sixth month, I want to say. And so it's not necessarily equal universe, but part of the challenge is when staff out there, regardless of the organization, are offering services to people who are not sheltered, getting them to find a job when they have nowhere to shower is really hard. So is keeping up with their mental health appointments, so is keeping up with substance abuse. It's just not, quite honestly, a realistic expectation. It has to be housing first for people to actually accept services. Part of that is we have had in the Project Homekey 20%, let's say it's about 19 now, for people really just not engaging and not accepting services. But that is 19 to 20%. There is the 80% to accept them. So I don't want to be naive to say everybody's going to accept services. It's just not reality. But 80% acceptance and higher rate of employment, engagement in employment services, higher rate of accepting mental health and substance abuse services, higher rate kind of across the board is to me, a significant achievement when I compare it to a program that we ran as whole person care. And I do think the major difference is really the housing component.
No, I think this is not going to, you know, it's not going to go away. And I know that this is, you know, the smaller portion of the numbers of homeless, but, you know, if they're going to refuse service, you know, we certainly don't want our community to look like, you know, and I'm not picking on Fresno County or the city of Fresno, but when you look at the freeways in Fresno, it's absurd, you know, that these people are allowed to, you know, live on public property and, you know, not be bound by any of the laws that the rest of, you know, the public are in you know, the state of California. So I know Supervisor Baboon said that the state's listening, and I hope they hear that, you know, we have to have the ability to rectify those that refuse service, and that if they refuse service, you know, then, I mean, they should be removed from the count because we've attempted. But having said that, going back to KCAO and the ultimate ownership of the property, and that's always my concern is that, you know, this is the program of the day. It's a mandate, and you know, here we are today. Well, if you don't do this, we're going to take that. And again, the ultimate ownership of this project, when it has been achieved, when it achieves its final destination.
So I do want to point out, and part of the reason to me this conversation is significant because I will be back to talk shelter. Shelter is a program. This is truly about permanent housing in apartments. While I want to place our people from the shelter into it, so those who are, we are not at all likely And it just has not happened yet with any apartment complex anywhere where we would take somebody from the street, straight from the street into an apartment complex. We need that interim step, and that interim step is shelter. I will be back a couple of times for sure to talk to your board about shelter. This is an apartment complex. We're taking a motel out of a commission and creating an apartment complex. So so what I would like KCAO to do, and they would be the ultimate owner, the agreement with the state and us and KCAO lasts for 5 years. We will restrict it via deed, but what we're really saying is, here's an apartment complex. It's 22 studio apartments ultimately. So that's the 2023 is the goal. And rent to low income people are 30% of AMI and less. 37,000 people out there in our community would qualify. I'd want them to focus on, especially first couple of years, the people that are in the Stardust as a shelter, in King's Gospel Mission as a shelter, their own shelter, that they're already off the street, they're connected to services, they have a voucher in their hand, whether they're Section 8 voucher or somebody, and they are looking for a permanent apartment, and KCAO is a landlord. We want to provide services on site, because if we can have that piece of it, if we can handhold people through a piece of it, and they can get to SSI, they can get to an employment, they're letting go of that voucher to somebody else, and this is their apartment. But they're not, this isn't a program that lasts 3 months, whatever. If somebody wants to stay in a lease for 10 years, they do. So so from that standpoint, it really, what we're asking KCAO to do is not operate a program, but operate an apartment complex. So there is no services that are part of it. That piece is separate. When we are talking shelter or replacement for room key, when we're talking about coordination of services, that piece is, we do need to do that part, that interim part. But this is truly asking KCAO operate an apartment complex. That is what once we purchase this property, if it's executed, we would deed it over, and essentially that's their restriction. This needs to be a low-income apartment complex for 55 years. After that, you can do whatever, like 55 years or as long as it stands. If it stands less than 55 years, and rent to people who make less than 30% of AMI is essentially the requirement. So I do want to distinguish that from a program where we would say we want to provide these services. That's the commitment. It has worked, but they will be on site as a landlord, not as anything else. I'm hoping that helps.
It does. I think, I mean, if I was KCAO, and there was a deed restriction on this thing, and let's say that the state all of a sudden decides that it's no longer going to fund the program, and they don't have the funds to do that, and they have now a deed restricted property, what is their process? I mean, maybe this is from legal counsel, their process in rectifying, the likely scenario that they're in. They have a property that they don't have the funds to operate, and I don't know. I'm just asking that for them, but if there's anything anyone would share.
The question is a good one, Supervisor Peterson. We don't know what will happen in that event. Once the property is acquired, it's anticipated that the service revenues that would come from providing services through our ordinary budgetary mechanisms and other funding would support the ongoing operation. In looking at the project, County Counsel's office has been most concerned about the vendor rather than the state. We perceive that the state has the long-term commitment in structuring this in a way where the project becomes self-supporting once the land is purchased and the renovations are done. So the short-term funding to get it up and running is taken care of. Providing the services and the revenues and the benefits to the people who are housed there is what will keep it going. From County Counsel's perspective, our concern was, what happens if during the 55 years that this needs to be maintained as a transitionary shelter, permanent shelter, affordable housing? What if the vendor decides they don't want to do it anymore. What happens then? And we can't predict that well either, but those are the concerns. If the service revenues keep it going, you won't necessarily need additional funding for this project over and above what the state already does through general services for the homeless.
Let me provide a couple of clarifying points. So in the KCAO, part of the reason why KCAO selection was intentional. When we originally applied for this application, we were a co-applicant with RH Community Builders and Upholdings. They were going to be the owner and operator. They happen to be development companies, but they have done this. They're actually, Upholdings at least will be participating with us in behavioral health and No Place Like Home, but they would be the owner and operator. And what the costs are really acquisition costs, if you really think of them in three buckets. Acquisition cost is one. The second bucket is really conversion, because a motel room has a restroom, has a room, but doesn't have a kitchen. We need, a studio apartment, we need that. So there's a conversion bucket. And then there is ongoing operations. In supportive housing, most apartments, people don't pay people's PG&E and water, but in SROs, we will. But it really is because we would be handing them the property that they own. It's the rents that come from the individuals that are really covering the operational costs. Individuals who are not employed, but have a Section 8 voucher, it's that Section 8 voucher that covers it. We have both Champions and KCAO. KCAO does this. They already have properties that are operating as low-income housing. There's only about 24 vouchers in our county from our COC, but there's 688 of them from Housing Authority that are vouchers that people can walk in and pay an apartment. That payment is operational funds. KCAO does this for people who are SSI. They charge them rent. Part of it is where low-income housing, there's rent cost restrictions, but their operations of PG&E and water and their personal site is looking at the budget. And we had to provide a 5-year budget to the state that we can do this. We'd actually already identified at least 10 vouchers that we have in perpetuity for this, but the intent is that people with the individual, so we have vouchers for foster kids, we have 10 vouchers for veterans currently, in addition to the 688 out there that are kind of non-restricted from Section 8. That really is what provides for that coverage of ongoing operational costs and maintenance. KCAO has a couple of properties that they do this with, whether they place people with vouchers. Currently, Champions has a Grace Homes program that they have vouchers. They don't have properties to go. My department has multiple places where we have funding, but have no places to go. Ongoing costs to pay for vouchers is really, of all of our concerns, that's the last one, because we have vouchers that we've had entities return them back because they can't find an actual location to pay low-income rent. That is not the piece where I'm concerned genuinely, and part of it is I have at least 5 years of we have the funding and we can't find places for people to live. And that's that apartment complex. If somebody's showing up, we are going to partner with KCAO when it comes to conversion of the property, and that's where our COC. So Michelle, who spoke earlier, we're a Kings Tulare COC. They have helped us already identify funding for conversion, and we need that partnership with KCAO. But once we're past that, the ongoing operation piece is much easier because really the deed is operated as an apartment complex.
Thanks. I think that's the majority of the questions I have, but I would like, as this going forward, and maybe this already occurs, but from the standpoint of us, showing compliance, I think we need to track those that refuse service, and that needs to be an ongoing list that, we provided housing. I know, again, this facility, there were a few people from, an area that I was working on that were placed, and they stayed there for 2 days, and we're just going to go back to being out on the street. We want that, more than we want, housing. And I think, that needs to be a number that's tracked of those that refuse service. I think from the number standpoint, I think when you look at what, the city of LA did. What did they spend? $630,000 per unit on a 48 unit, complex. I mean, this is peanuts compared to that, but it is Kings County, and we're just on a smaller scale. But I think we need this affordable housing. But again, the state has a big role in the affordable housing side of this thing, and so thank you for answering my question.
Certainly, and we can track. I do want to let you know that we do not get penalized in our funding sources for individuals refusing services. The piece on the housing element, so your board adopting an 8-year plan for housing element and the, I don't know if it's a commitment, objective goals. It really is stated as goals of producing additional low-income housing. Those are what our community development agency reports on. And having that plan in place, it basically benefits the county a number of different ways. And having that plan certified helps us with funding sources like CDBG. None of the funding sources in my agency are impacted by compliance with that plan. But that annual, as a county, we're making an effort to grow housing and that kind of thing. It does impact, but that's really on construction and supportment of development, not services to individuals. That's where the CDBG funding and some of those other, like how we get awarded, the fact that there's an effort, and that's from our jurisdiction, but also from the 4 cities, that there is an effort of supporting creation of sufficient housing. But that's, and I don't know that we actually get penalized at all for not achieving it. It just gets reported on and gets considered, and the efforts get considered, because certainly what's dependent on the development of this housing is sufficient funding. And that's where we, as a smaller county, I do think in some of these allocation methodologies, we never really get sufficient dollar amount to that it's building. So any of our projects takes 4 or 5 or 6 funding sources to pull together because our allocations are so small. What's unique about Homekey, and it's certainly the first time I've seen it in 19 years, is when we're given a project and said, well, put a project together and ask us for funding, as opposed to here's a $200,000 allocation and try to build something that's 30 apartments. It just doesn't work, which is why it takes us longer than some jurisdiction to develop affordable housing. It is not surprising that our progress in 4 years is slower than the average. It just, our allocations aren't there.
You good, Supervisor Peterson?
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, Supervisor Valley.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll just say that for anyone who hasn't heard at least my opinion on this project so far, I just want to start off by saying obviously the homelessness issue in Kings County is something that is near and dear to a lot of our hearts, and it's an obvious issue that needs to be dealt with. But I just go back to the starting point, and so I'm not there yet. It's not that I'm not open-minded or not paying attention. I'm talking to Sonia on the phone. We spend a lot of time. I'm reading the reports, but so I don't want anyone to think this is something that I haven't taken lightly. That being said, the starting point of this, I just have to agree with Supervisor Fagundes on coming out of his district, and that there's just we strive to be transparent in everything we do, and unfortunately, with COVID going on, that makes it hard. It's hard to have that town hall meeting. It's hard to look the people that we represent in the eyes, and this isn't just an issue in Sup Fagundes' district. It's in my district too, and I'd love to be able to see the people I represent more, but to limit our exposure to COVID, and we're limited on that. And so, just the starting point on this and being a good issue and a possible good project, I'm still having trouble on the starting point. The starting point of it. That the area that Supervisor Fagundes represents, they do have a lot put on them already when it comes to issues like this. And I see that and I hear that. And so that's hard to ignore as well. You know, I wish we had more time here without these deadlines that we're constantly being confronted with. I wish we had the opportunity to talk about a good project like this closer to services, you know, to look at the county and say, hey, let's all pitch in and pull our own weight. You know, is there areas in more central Hanford, you know, if we're talking Hanford, to move this in closer to the services instead of having, you know, these types of projects constantly looked at on the east side of the county? Because I've heard from the people out there before as well on something very similar to this in 2008. Well, I don't want to say similar, but just on, I know how those folks are when it came to the state reentry facility. And, you know, when you're talking about the monies, and I think back then the state was waiving $25 million, something like that. Rebecca could correct me if I'm wrong. $25 million is a carrot to the county. Here's $25 million, build this reentry facility. And it was in, at that time, Supervisor Eileen Taylor's district. And so I went to those meetings. I was at that town hall meeting in the cafeteria that night, and I've heard from those folks. And, you know, those type of folks over there, they don't ask a lot of us at the county. They're farming, they're hardworking folks. They don't usually come to meetings like this and speak up, but doesn't mean that they don't care. And in this situation, they just don't have that opportunity. And so, and this isn't to contradict anything that you said, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, you spent a lot of time on this, but this last statement would be me to the state. And if the state is listening, I would take issue with any types of, I don't want to use the word threats, but any conversations as it relates to a punishment to us. Because I would remind anyone listening from the state that our entire county lies in one of the poorest congressional districts in the state of California, if not the country. That being said, the board, staff, we're attempting to have a conversation on an issue that affects poor people. And if the state wasn't happy with how this conversation ends and they chose to punish poor people by withholding resources that poor people in our poor communities in Kings County need to remove blight and to enlighten their day-to-day lives, I would take issue with that. I would take issue with any elected representative that covers our area that would allow a conversation like that to even take place. So I'm going to keep an open mind and move forward. But for the public today, I just want them to know that's why I'm not being supportive today. I think I owe the people at least my opinion on that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Supervisor Valley, can I just address a couple of issues on transparency? So this has been a competitive process. There were 30 some projects that got in their application before us. And I don't know how they got it together from July 22nd to August 13th prior to us, because our first project was submitted on August 8th, but they had projects going. So from that perspective, our vetting in June and July to apply on August 8th of 2 months was quick. But it has been, so where I want to give my staff credit is on that transparency issue, because I think we have been transparent. I really do. And it's not about the state. They have actually bent over backwards in many ways on this project, because we've broken just about every rule on this project. They've allowed us to swap out every partner. They've allowed us to lose site control. They've allowed us to add things to the application that we didn't think to put in back in August 8th. And they take their time, but then respond and basically give us a yes. So I do think for that piece, they really have been good partners. When it comes to, we reached out, my staff reached out to every motel. They reached out to people that are working in the business. They reached out to any organization that has anything to do with the subject and said, can we put this on the table? partially because there was a confusion between Homekey and Homekey. That kind of amped up the conversation. And every time I brought things to the board, there's tons of people out there listening more so than even I thought, because people would pick up the phone and make an assumption that this is already done. And I'm going, no, not there yet. So there has been a lot of conversation, many of which I can learn from people and some of which I've prompted. I don't know. I genuinely don't know how to be more transparent about the conversation for this. I have staff living in this area who said we have actually genuinely improved what things look like in both of these motels. We've done it from Project Homekey perspective, but and what we would be doing is taking a motel out of commission and saying it's an apartment complex. I don't mind taking services out there because I do think people who are lower income, people who are elderly, we do better when we actually bring services to the community. Having McAllister help me organize a 2-hour conversation with Home Garden Community District, where a portion of the conversation was about sewer and water and all of that kind of stuff. But the largest portion of the conversation, and I kid you not, 2-hour meeting, was about services we would bring to the rest of the community. They liked the idea of the project, but they're going, but hey, what about the rest of our residents? So that piece of it, us bringing services elsewhere in the community, our ability to do it is limited because I only have so much staff. But I actually do think that's a positive. If I can sprinkle my staff out there to partner, I do it. So I don't know how to help with the transparency perception. I certainly am willing to organize anything that's needed in order to have that conversation. But we genuinely have had many conversations prior to narrowing the project down to 2. And then since then, once we've applied for the 2, what we don't have the capacity to do is swap out the project if we had a better one now. It is like these are the only 2, and we actually haven't even had the second one that I wish it was. But we went through the process of narrowing it down and said, this is our best bet. But I genuinely think that was our best bet, and we got as much of input as we could in it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And again, like I was trying to say in my comments, it's not anything negative to your work. You're doing a thorough job. You're looking at this issue to your staff. And again, thank you for that. But when I say transparency, I don't look at it. The majority of the percentage of that isn't based on staff. Because yes, we want staff and our department heads to be transparent to the public every day, no matter what the issue. But transparency, it's rooted from the perspective of an elected representative. And so I think about Supervisor Fagundes, and I think about his opinions on if this issue has been a transparent issue in his district, and it doesn't sound like it. And so a couple of minutes ago, when you said you would do anything to hold an event or something to take place to increase the transparency, well, I've asked for that a month ago. So that's why I said, for anyone who's listening, I just want to reiterate my comments for that to the general public, because the last thing I want to do is seem cold-hearted on an opportunity to help homeless. And so I'm taking up the board's time and repeating a lot of that again, but I have asked for something to be more transparent. I know COVID isn't going to allow us to all get in the cafeteria again on a Tuesday night and have that conversation in Supervisors Fagundes district. But if there's any type of possibility to notify those folks or to have an opportunity to get a lot of feedback in these chambers from those folks, and right now where they're not even allowed to come in here and have a seat in these chambers, that's where, when I say lack of transparency, that's where those comments are rooted from on there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you.
Thank you. But Neb, do you have anything to say?
Well, I think, at a different time and a different place, we'd certainly choose a different direction, but we're trying to deal with the cards that are dealt to us. The state of California has put us in this predicament because they haven't funded the low income or affordable housing, housing elements the way they have in the past. The cost of new construction is astronomical. and we're back in an era when we can, rehab an older existing facility, and that just happens to be where it's at. And I think we have an opportunity to enhance that sheltering intake. I hate to say permanent housing, but at least transitional housing, and try to get this population off the street and into another arena. As Sonia pointed out, there are a lot of Section 8 contracts. There's a lot of farm labor housing contracts that we have in the county, state housing. But as the state continues to empty state prisons, we end up with a lot of parolees. We end up with a lot of different people that are just hard to serve. And again, given an adequate amount of time and an adequate amount of money, I could fix any problem there is, but we just don't have the adequate amount of time or the adequate amount of money, and we're trying to fit this project into an existing facility. And again, I think I do have some concerns that the state, because what happens is one department says that they're going to fully fund it and it's going to work and we're going to have Section 8. Then all of a sudden the other department comes along and says, but you're going to meet all the ADA handicap requirements and you're going to meet all of the other requirements based on a different department, whether that's solid waste or fire standards or anything else that's going to add to the cost of the operation of this project that is going to have a difficult time of funding. The solid waste, the organics deal is just going to add more cost of doing business, especially in a studio apartment type arrangement that's just going to add a lot more to the cost. But whether it's a new construction or existing construction that's just been rehabbed, it doesn't matter. But the state just continues to add on the cost of doing business. And there's no automatic roll up. There's no CPI. There's no way to absorb that other than the existing operational funds. And that's why people are not investing in that kind of affordable housing elements. It's just not, the return on investment is just not there anymore. And so while the state of California through social services, continues to try to make headway, there are 3 other departments that continue to put roadblocks. So with that, those are just my comments.
Thank you. I'll add a couple more here. So I heard about the supervisor district, about, being in his district and all the concerns. I know that this hotel was not the best of hotels. This is not your high-end hotel. This was a subject of sex trafficking in the neighborhood. I know probation had done a couple reports to the community about what happens out there. And I don't remember any discussion about that, about the community telling us we need to do something about that at that time. So I think this is going to be a controlled environment which we can help people trying to get on their feet. With that said, I know near that area, a friend of mine had a business out there and complained about a homeless guy living behind his business on the railroad track. And so I went out there and the guy was leaving his tent and he was walking across the street. So I just quickly stopped him and had a brief conversation. And he lost his home, gotten divorced, but he still had a job. And he was walking, we had mobile showers at the time. He was walking to get a shower and he was doing everything in his power to get back on his feet. Had this existed back then, he wouldn't have been sleeping in a tent on someone else's property. And it wouldn't have made the owner of the business uncomfortable. That was in the supervisor for goodness district. I took time out of my day to understand the guy's situation. He wasn't in drugs. He wasn't nothing. He just had a bad 2 to 3 months in his life, and he was doing everything in his power to get back on his feet. That's the person we're trying to attract here and try to help, not the one on drugs. I also had a close friend of mine I went to school with in high school for 4 years, and he worked at Fortune Supply Hardware. We said hi, seemed like a good guy. Well, he froze to death in a dumpster bin behind Food Co, not Food Co, but the one across from Fortune Supply. He got involved in drugs, and his wife kicked him out, and his family quit talking to him because he needed to get help with the drugs. He froze to death. You always want to. I wish I could have helped him at that time because I didn't know he was struggling like that. So there's different struggles in the world and different things out there we have to look at and see how we can help. It's our job as Board of Supervisors to find opportunities to help people that cannot help themselves. Supervisor Peterson had a good point. We don't want to help those that refuse help. There's also a girl in school with, I see her every day walking down 11th Avenue. She sleeps in Hidden Valley Park, and she doesn't want help. Her family reached out and tried to help her, and she's not getting any better looking as time goes on, and her health looks like it's diminishing. But if she keeps refusing help and she's okay with where she's at, then there's not much you can do. Fresno City allows homelessness to live underneath the over ramps, the overpasses, the freeways, the corners. You almost feel uncomfortable sometimes when you go up to the signal light and they're right there, right next to you. They're probably harmless, but it makes you feel uncomfortable. And if you're a compassionate person, you want to see if you can help them, but you tie in drugs to that. You don't really want to give them any money. I know we had a situation here about a year ago where we had a homeless person come into the county and he was irate. He made everybody feel uncomfortable. I took him aside, talked to him, got his name, asked him a bunch of random questions, took his mind off it, walked him over to Carolee. He was a person that they had refused help to because he refused help. I got him to listen to him. We got him a water, a bag of potato chips, and he was fine. After about an hour of getting him relaxed and calm down and making him comfortable with me, he told me all he wanted was $10 to get some more meth because he really performed better on meth than he did without it. And that was his total problem. So people have their own individual struggles. Last week, we had someone beating on the assessor's door. No one in the county opened the door or talked to this gal. She was 35 years old. She was clearly had a mental problem. She was upset. She had everything she owned in a bag. She had rubber boots on with a knife in her boot, and everything had locks on her bags. I saw her walk out. HSA had a person help in the elections office. She tried to help her. The gal refused help from her. She walked across. She got to the parking lot. I went out there and I asked if I could help her. I probably had a 15, 20-minute conversation with her, got her calmed down, got her name, got her address, and got her to walk over to HSA. You need to help people that can't help themselves, and this is our opportunity to help these people. If you don't do it, you're part of the problem. So with that said, I'll leave it there. And if there's no further questions, I'll ask for a vote. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Excuse me, we need
Oh,
a
I know, I'm
motion.
sorry. Yeah. I forgot the key point. Yeah. Sorry about that.
You need some help there, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Move as outlined.
Motion by Supervisor Neves,
Second.
second by Supervisor Peterson. And Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Supervisor Neves,
Yes.
Supervisor Valley,
No.
Supervisor Verboen,
Yes.
Supervisor Peterson,
Aye.
Supervisor Fagundes.
No.
Okay, let's move forward. 3 in favor and 2 against. Thank you very much for the conversation. And we'll look forward to you bringing this back to us later on. Hopefully we can get some of the issues resolved with the understanding of what's really going on.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask something as you move forward on that? Because this probably has to be an agenda item, but for the lack of saving time, what stops us from the county mailing out a letter to the district and maybe even a prepaid postage envelope back that says, send us your comment. This is what's being talked about very heavily at the Board of Supervisors right now. Maybe a map of the Stardust Hotel and a little summary of this project. And you get that in the mail tomorrow to those households, well, with that ability for them to mail that back, in spite of COVID and having an opportunity for the clerks to sort through that and then present us that information.
That's good. That's a good idea. I mean, I don't know if that's possible, Sonia. I mean, it has to be the accurate information and make sure that, people fully understand exactly what's going on and don't leave room for interpretation to create their own issue. I know we keep leaning into the one issue, which was happened with that Supervisor Fagundes here. It's not that. It's not people from prison or jail back to the community. It's people that have just had totally bad luck. And, like I said, I had a home on my property. I was trying to fix it up. There was no cost recovery in the amount it cost me to fix it up because it costs everything. So we got to help where we can. And this is a small 22 rooms. It's a good start.
Yeah, maybe the language could be presented to you. You could okay the language and they could get that out as quick as possible.
Like a 1 mile circle from the area, or how do you want to do that? Something like that? I think the community development can help with the area. With that. Yeah, let's work on that. Sooner the better. Okay, thank you, Sonia.
Thank you.
Okay, I did that right? 3 in favor, 2 against, and we move on to the next item, which will be administrative. Rebecca Campbell.
Good morning. This is item F, and this is the weekly item on the novel coronavirus 2019 pandemic. I'll first take your board through a weekly update on any state actions, federal actions, local actions, and then turn it over to Director of Public Health, Edward Hill. So looking at state, yesterday, the governor came on and provided an update on COVID-19. Both the governor and Dr. Galley noted that there is highly likely that a number of counties will be moving back into the purple tier today. And our Director of Public Health will talk about that during his section. He also warned that the news on potential vaccine coming out, that, folks may look at that and start relaxing some of the protocols. So he said to please keep up with those protocols, and because that will take quite some time to get the vaccine out. I also wanted to let your board know that the State Department of Finance has prepared a monitoring plan for coronavirus relief funds distributed to counties and cities from the state. The Department of Finance plans to do some sampling between now and the first formal report to the U.S. Treasury Office of Inspector General, which is due in mid-December. There's also a report due January 6th. So the state will be looking for additional documentation in various categories, and will choose various entities that receive allocations from the federal government and state allocations to ensure no duplicate reporting. I wanted to let your board know that today there will be an assembly hearing on COVID-19. The Assembly Budget Committee will meet with the Assembly Governmental Organization Committee to evaluate the state's response to the pandemic. On the federal side, this was mostly focused around the election this week, so I don't have an update on COVID-19 here, but I wanted to let your board know that the Kings County Emergency Operations Center is continuing to meet on a weekly basis. The county is still following its protocols and workplace guidelines to mitigate the spread within our own doors and to the public. I wanted to let your board know that we did have a successful election day, but I wanted to let your board know that we have had to put a pause on the election count due to exposure within the county's offices. So right now the elections office is closed. The employees are taking calls, but we cannot continue the count due to exposure. Also, the finance department is closed to the public. The employees are taking calls, but we're looking at approximately a 2-week closure to the office. We have installed drop boxes for the tax payments, and the phones are available. Okay, so I wanted to let your board know that on the 24th, we'll bring more of a detailed update on the CARES Act funds, but we have claimed to the state all of our CARES Act funds. So I wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And so at this time, I will turn it over to the Director of Public Health, Edward Hill.
Thanks, Rebecca. Mr. Hill, you on the line this morning?
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Edward Hill, Public Health. I'd like to start off my report, as I always do, by going over the basic practices that we can all do to protect ourselves and our loved ones from the spread of communicable diseases such as COVID. And those are wash your hands frequently for 20 seconds or more. Don't touch your face with unwashed hands. Stay home if you are sick, and stay hydrated with water. And cover your face using cloth face coverings. This helps protect yourselves and your loved ones. Our current numbers for the county, we have currently collected 78,608 samples since the outbreak began. Results pending, we have 486. Currently monitoring 1,730 individuals. Our total current community cases since the outbreak began is 4,907. Unfortunately, 78 deaths. Total recovered, 4,179. Active cases of 651. Our skilled nursing facility cases total since the outbreak began is at 174 with 1 active case, 173 recovered, and unfortunately 24 deaths. State prison outbreaks continue with a total since the outbreak began at 4,583. That's 447 at Corcoran, 3,123 at Avenal State Prison, and 1,013 at SATF. They've collected 44,950 samples. They have 198 results pending, active cases of 1,079, recovered cases of 3,113, and unfortunately 9 deaths. They currently don't have anybody hospitalized. Our concerns remain the same. SATF continues to have a large outbreak, and we remain engaged with them in the state. Again, our concerns still remain healthcare surge and the staff infections that will be carried into our community as well as the other communities where those individuals live. We continue to watch hospital data closely. We are seeing our numbers stabilize again with the numbers of admitted patients being less than 20, which is a good thing to see. However, the region, we still continue to see slight increases in general admissions and ICU admissions for COVID-19 patients. As of yesterday, the local hospital had 18 COVID patients with 4 in the ICU. The California Emergency Medical Services Authority also announced yesterday their 4-region county is experiencing an outbreak mostly associated with the skilled nursing facility, and they're encouraging all their first responders and all of their staff to remain diligent and adhere to PPE requirements and those processes. We are doing the same. The Porterfield Development Center alternate care site remains in warm status, which means it can be stood back up in 72 hours. We are currently still maintaining 60-day supply of PPE, gowns, N95 masks, and gloves for all of our healthcare facilities. This will be important in the coming days. We're seeing national shortages again across the nation due to the outbreaks across the Midwest and other parts of the nation. The mobile testing program site scheduled for this week, it was at the Kings County Complex yesterday. It is at Avenal High School today. It will be off tomorrow for Veterans Day. It'll be at Lamora High School on Thursday. It is off on Friday. Saturday, it's at Tachi Palace, and we are still working on locking down a site for Sunday. Also, as anticipated and mentioned in past updates, given the number of outbreaks across the nation, the Federal Health and Human Services Agency testing resource, the federal testing resource or a mobile testing resource, this means the staff, the medical staff, the testing kits and lab processing will be deployed somewhere else in the Midwest. This is going to happen as soon as November 19th. I anticipated this would happen, and it won't be a big deal for Kings County as we've already executed our strategy to move forward without any interruptions of these services. During the pilot program with the state 2 weeks ago, I requested they send us as many testing kits as they could spare, and they sent us an additional 5,700 kits. And we have been given permission to continue to use those and send them to the lab in Valencia, which is the state's Perkin-Elmer lab, which has come online this month. Also, as mentioned in the past weeks, the state rolled out their new testing models available to the counties, along with their possible associated costs. And we chose, again, the local health jurisdiction option, which has the least amount of cost and risk associated with it. And we've been gearing up for this and anticipate a smooth transition with the federal testing resource leaving. We have been trained on the state's new testing registration software known as Color, and have requested additional supplies from the state so that we can continue to keep our inventory strong. One of the missing items is pre-registration for testing, which hasn't been deployed by the Color team yet, but we are working with them, but it still should not slow down or change our testing processes moving forward. Our program that is designed to support the essential workforce and their isolation and quarantine is currently serving 15 households with a total of 63 households served. We continue to promote that through all of our testing sites as well as all of our partners. We've been holding our regularly scheduled meetings and follow-up calls with the State Unified Support Team and continue to work through any pending issues. Of course, of note is the increasing case rates throughout the San Joaquin Valley. Our planning efforts for the possible release of the COVID-19 vaccine continue, and the California Department of Public Health is holding regular meetings with us as well as the other local health jurisdictions to discuss distribution and prioritization of these vaccines. We are in the process of purchasing the necessary equipment to store the vaccines, and the state has begun to identify priority populations as well as working with us to identify partners to assist with the storage and administration of the vaccine. And I will continue to update your board as we learn more. Several weeks ago, we introduced our strategy to address the state's target investment plan. One of our initial actions was to conduct interviews with past and or current positive COVID patients to identify any barriers in existing testing, isolation, quarantine support, case investigation, or contract tracing. And we've concluded 61 interviews last week, and we're reviewing that data. And we will adjust our strategies based on what we learn. In addition to that, our target investment plan was approved by the state last week with some requested modifications, but the state still has not shared with us what the requested modifications will be, and I'll update your board when that occurs. Our current numbers for the state metrics this week are: our new case per 100,000 is 8.4, which meets purple tier criteria, and we continue to see increasing numbers. As a reminder, in order to meet the state's red tier criteria metrics, our new cases per 100,000 per day needs to be 11 cases or less a day. And we are currently seeing numbers in the 20s, 30s, and even close to 40 cases a day again. Our overall testing positivity at this time is 3.2. Our testing positivity in the lowest quartile of the Healthy Places Index is at 4.6. And this means our cases per 100,000 meets the purple tier criteria, and our testing positivity for the lowest quartile and overall testing positivity is still in the orange criteria, but the HCI testing positivity is getting closer to 5%, which exceeds that orange criteria and would be in the red criteria. And we anticipate that those testing positivity rates will continue to increase. Our test per 100,000 is currently at 398. This is an important, as our actual new cases per 100,000 is, the score is actually 10.2. And since we're testing more than the state's median, which is 272, they adjusted our score to 8.4. Our concern is over testing fatigue. Thankfully, as I mentioned in the past, the new testing process by the state is a self-swab without being that invasive and having to go so far up into the nasopharynx. You can collect the sample just within the nares. Given the current state of our metric values, we're at risk of moving back to the purple tier next week. We are not the only county in this circumstance, as all the counties surrounding us are also seeing similar issues, so I'm not sure why the governor named us yesterday. The California Department of Public Health will be looking at the most recent 10 days of data, and if they determine that there are objective signs of improvement, we may be able to remain in the red tier. But if they look at that data and they don't see any objective signs of improvement, we will be forced to move back to the most restrictive purple tier. If this occurs, we will have 3 days beginning the Wednesday after the tier assignment, which is next Tuesday, to implement any sector changes. And these changes are, museums, zoos, and aquariums will have to go to outdoor operations only with modifications. Places of worship will have to go to outdoor only with modifications. Movie theaters will have to go to outdoor only with modifications. Hotels will remain open with modifications. Gyms and fitness centers will have to go to outdoor only modifications. Restaurants will have to revert back to outdoor only with modifications. Hair salons will be able to remain open indoors with modifications. All retail will have to switch back from their 50% capacity to 25% capacity. This includes shopping centers and malls. Malls will have to close common areas and close food courts, and the food will be able to be served, but it will have to be taken outside to be consumed. Now I need to be clear and remind everyone that we've been warning that even though our numbers were looking good, the more we open, the greater the chance for the spread of the virus, so these changes were expected. Also, as the weather changes and gets colder, gatherings will move back indoors, which is also a driver of increased transmission. And we had a stretch of really good weather, which drove people outside where there was less chance of transmission, which helped our numbers. Our staff continue to work diligently to identify if there's any identifiable hot pockets or causes so that we can adjust accordingly. But right now, what we're seeing is like the results of the past several weeks in gatherings within the county. It is also what other counties are seeing. We will be releasing a press release today that speaks to these points, as well as drafting and distributing a bulletin to all of the affected sectors if we should have to move back to the purple tier. Lastly, I'd like to remind everybody again that this is, again, COVID-19 and it changes hourly. Given this, we want people to remain diligent and implement the measures to keep us all safe. We continue to hear about gatherings and events that were associated with Halloween and the weeks leading up to the Halloween, which could be a cause of our numbers, as well as a number of events planned for Thanksgiving and Christmas. The state will soon be releasing holiday gathering guidance, and we'll update everybody as soon as that is out and once it's released. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ed. Only question I have is when it comes to your mobile testing source and you have that big RV, are you having issues finding a driver for the RV? And if you are you looking for a smaller one that anybody in your staff can drive?
Chairman Verboen, through the board, that is correct. We have been thankfully very fortunate that HR, Henny Ring, has worked really hard to find us extra help staff because that unit does require a Class B driver's license with an air brake certificate, and we are currently working with Evan and purchasing to acquire a smaller toy hauler type. That way we can transport the gear in it as well, which would also alleviate the pressure of having to have a special driver.
So now you've been doing this for 6 weeks. You know what you can minimize in your travels. So if you need any help from the board, don't be afraid to ask for it because we're here to help. We want to see that. I think this is going to continue for quite some time. So anything we can do, please let us know.
Chairman Verboen, to the board, that is correct, and we appreciate the help. In addition to that, that large unit is not very mobile, and as I had mentioned in the past, when we switch to the state's new system, we will not be locked down to one location each day and have the ability to move more frequently, which would be much easier with a smaller unit.
Very good. Any more questions for Ed? Supervisor Valley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Ed, so if we do get road back to a more restrictive level, what's the number one cause? Is it the lack of people testing?
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, it will not be because of the lack of people testing. Thank you for the question. As mentioned earlier, our daily testing numbers are at 498, which far exceed our neighbors by about 150 tests per day, and they are seeing the exact same results within their counties.
Does more testing, is a message to the public for more testing, help us to get back to the red?
Thank you, Supervisor Valley, through the chair. That's exactly right. We still have the ability to, if we can keep or if we can drive down our testing positivity, if we're rolled back to purple, and our number of new cases per day stabilizes or is not increasing by 5% more, we will be able to take advantage of the state's accelerated reopening process, which would move us back to the red tier quicker. So to answer your question, yes, the message is still we need to test often, we need to test frequently, and we need to do it everywhere.
Okay, thank you. And then when you reported on SATF earlier in Corcoran, are you, how's your line of communication out there? I know there's new leadership out there. There's an acting warden out there. Do you have a line of communication as it relates to the current situation out there?
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, yes, we do have a line of communication. Again, the barrier is not usually, well, it can be the local warden, but often it's the state CDCR. So again, we've engaged the California Department of Public Health and their health infection unit to assist us with that process. They have been more amenable to suggestions that I had made in the past when we had this issue out at Avenal State Prison, such as finding new and ulterior ways to isolate prisoners so that they are not so in such congregate settings to share or to spread the virus. So we are at least seeing some movement in that respect, and we do have a better line of communication with this facility than when we had with Avenal.
And you say I know you can't enforce, correct? But it sounds like recommendations are being heard by you. Has there been any recommendations as it relates to those specific departments where staff are getting infected to having those folks go back to working from home?
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, as you can imagine, a lot of the COs and those folks will not be able to work from home. But the prison did institute a mutual aid system, which they did not, I shouldn't say they, which was a challenge. The first outbreak we had at Avenel State Prison, where they are bringing in additional well or non-positive staff from other areas and jurisdictions to help them through this outbreak.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to COs. I was referring to staff in the departments. But that's okay. I'll leave that conversation out of public. Last question as it relates to the report out of the elections department. That's sad to hear that situation occurred. What was the cause of that? Meaning, were the mask guidelines being followed? I wouldn't want to hear that there was volunteers in there not masked up during the days leading to election and higher traffic levels in there, including the day of the election and the counts. What can you say is the cause of that?
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, due to the limited number of staff that work there and privacy rules, I can't get into any details.
But I'm not asking about their health. I'm asking, you were seeing a lot of stories. I mean, LA Times last week had a story on Fresno County Board of Supervisors having an outbreak amongst the board. And in fact, I don't believe they could even meet today. And so I'm coming from that perspective. There's a public departments. This is public government center. If there was an issue to the lack of the guidelines, that's what I'm asking you about. And I believe the public has a right to know about that.
Supervisor Valley, through the chair, I'm not aware of any lack of adherence to the guidelines in that facility.
Okay, so obviously it could just happen. So this is just something that happened?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, thank you, Mr. Hill, for your report. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? I know as far as the driver goes for the RV, we need a driver in the morning to move the RV from the health department to the site. So if anybody's out there listening that has a Class B driver's license, we need volunteers to get it moved out there until we get a smaller unit that we can move ourselves. So
thank you to Mike Rodamel. He's the one who drove to Corcoran.
Mike Rodamel?
Yeah. He's been volunteering to.
So thanks, Mike Rodamel, for doing that. Appreciate that. I know I don't have my Class B no more. I got rid of it.
You got rid of it?
Yeah. 25 years driving truck. I'm good. I'm retired.
I still have it. My Class A is dead, so if you need one, but you got the bar shut down, so I have no place to go to wait for it to open up. So we'll have to work on some kind of.
If you had a little trailer to put your motorcycle on the back, you ran home.
I could do that.
Yeah.
They'll take care of you at Lake Bottom in Corcoran. You just go sit out front. There's a table out there on the sidewalk.
Out there in front.
You'll be all right.
Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. Rebecca, we're supposed to go on here to board member comments, but it's 12:15. We haven't had a break since 8:30 this morning. You want to go ahead and take a break and we'll come back and finish up? Or do you think we can wrap this up in a few minutes?
The board member comments, we could wrap up in a few minutes, but the closed session.
No, I know.
Quite likely.
We'll just finish up where we are in open session and go to close and then take a break. Okay? Board member comments, Supervisor Valley.
Can I go last, Mr. Chair? I'll go last.
Supervisor Peterson?
I'm good. Thank you.
Supervisor Goodness is good. Supervisor Neves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kicked off the Santa season last week, making some recorded remarks for the Kings County Library, reading stories. My Spanish wasn't very good, but I used my advice to Supervisor Fagundes, and when I got to a Spanish word I didn't understand, I just talked low and fast. So if you get a chance to see that, yeah, there might be a couple of words that, and some of them I just went ahead and used English. Because, yeah, I still can't figure out what lantern is. But anyway, and then went over to the Family Resource Center. Same thing. For many years, we've done open houses and taking photos with many of the families that use the Family Resource Centers and made it an encouraging welcome. Their theme this year is going to be Santa's Workshop. And so we just wished everybody a happy, safe, and healthy Christmas season. Had a meeting at Lemoore Kiwanis Club, as many service clubs are struggling during this COVID era and trying to figure out, what they do as a club. It's really not a club that can meet virtually. And so we're continue to work through some of those service club issues. I don't think they're the only service club having those, encountering those problems. Attended the virtual Department of Water Resources preseason flood coordination. We do this many, many years. Weather is predicting El Nino weather condition for the valley, which is traditionally warmer, drier winter. And with all of the scarred areas in both Fresno and Tulare counties, it would be nice to have kind of a normal year, but for agriculture and for all of our water resource needs, it would sure be nice to have some wet weather, but we just don't need those big storms. Continue to meet with the Flourish Advisory Board 4 times a year. Here in Kings County, we continue to work on things like health, education, financial stability, quality of life improvements. Blue zones come up. Blue zones are some of these areas that help businesses and individuals do better in their quality of life and length of life. But again, COVID continues to kind of get in the way of some of these socialized meetings and some of the other adopt a classroom. It's pretty hard to adopt a classroom when everybody's virtual. And some of the internships that we've done in the past, whether it's a high school student needing 40 hours of community service or whatever, there's just a lot of businesses that are not accepting internships. And as we can see, even in transportation with Calvans, just there's 30% or so of the people that are working virtually. They're no longer in the work site. And so it's just hard to try to get some of those internships and some of the mentoring. And you can see it a lot with the voc ed. There's just a whole class of beauticians and barbers out there that just can't get the contact time. There's a whole bunch of CNAs, the nursing programs that are just having a hard time finding that contact time. They can get the educational side and they get the lectures, but the contact time is just very, very difficult. And then finally, the passing of Linda Hodney.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, Supervisor Valley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again for mentioning the Marine Corps birthday. I also just want to say Happy Veterans Day to everyone, because that encompasses everyone. We got a lot of veterans here serving not only at the county, but many veterans around Kings County out there just doing good things around the community. And I know they're proud of their service. And so we appreciate them. But specifically to the Marine Corps, Mr. Chair, today the Marine Corps is 245 years old. Many people know that the Marine Corps was born in a bar. It was born in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia back in 1775. There were some men in there drinking. Someone came in and said, "Hey, we're going to war. We need some fighters." And the guys put their drinks down and they took off, and the Marine Corps was born. It's definitely the finest fighting force this world has ever seen. The Marines are very proud of that. I did want to point out that as I was thinking through this last night, District 2, with the service of Marine veteran Supervisor John Ratchford, I believe he served 12 years, right? 12 years. So District 2 has had, with Super Ratchford, myself, they've had a Marine on post and on guard representing this district for 24 years now. And I did want to point that out to them. And Mr. Chair, I want to do something just real quick. It's going to take 10 seconds.
Yeah, I've been to it.
You don't get that.
From the halls of Montana to the stores of Tripoli, happy birthday, Lorraine. This year, you know, it's been a lot of challenges, it's something unique, but it's nothing that our country, our nation will afford, not face, past. Today, we celebrate the birthday, so to honor the memory of folks today, let's keep this one from meeting you. Where's the county department? Praise God. That's what we're here for. But the Marine Corps lives forever. Happy people forever. That's the Marine Corps.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on now to board correspondence.
Well, Supervisor Valley, you brought me down to memory lane, going to the Marine Corps Ball in Naples, Italy.
Oh, wow.
It was a lot of fun. I haven't been to a Navy ball though.
Has been a Navy ball?
No.
You went to a good one right there.
Yeah, it was a good one. Okay, so there are no updates in correspondence. The only upcoming meeting that I have on my list is a reminder for the California State Association of Counties Conference, starts this Thursday and runs all the way through next Thursday. Upcoming agenda items, this will be for the meeting on November 24th, the admin COVID-19 public health update. November 24th, we'll have a public safety realignment and post-release community supervision annual plan coming to the board. There'll be some budget modifications for the sheriff, IT, and the district attorney's office. From the health department, we'll have a delegation of contracting authority for their first 5 Children's and Families First Commission. From the finance department, administration, and HR, there'll be a contract amendment for capital partnerships for the finance enterprise system. From human services, an agreement with KCAO for home visiting program services. From IT, we'll have, actually, I've already covered that item. And from the sheriff, we'll have a service handgun purchase. Also, from the fire department, we'll have acceptance of type 3 fire apparatus coming to your board and a fire services agreement with the city of Avenel. And that's it.
Okay, at this time, we'll go to closed session and we'll go into closed session doing significant exposure litigation. One case, Government Code Section 54956.9, D2-E2, deciding initiate litigation, significant exposure to litigation. One case, Government Code Section 54956.9, documentation of threat of litigation is available from clerk of the board. Conference with real property negotiator, Government Code Section 54956.8, property Stardust Motel, 8595 Lacey Boulevard, Stanford, California, 93230, negotiating parties, Sonia Begay, the County of King, and Mr. Patel, owner. Under negotiations, purchase of property for public use. Conference with labor negotiator, meet and confer, Government Code Section 54957.6. Negotiators Rebecca Campbell, Henny Ring, Shay Johnson of Liberty, Cassidy Whitmore. Blue Collar SEIU, Detention Deputies Association, Deputy Sheriff's Association, Firefighter Association, General Closia, Probation Officers Association, Prosecutors Association, Supervisors Closia, Unrepresented Management. Personal matter, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employment, title Public Works Director. Personal matters, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Performance Evaluation, title County Council. And last but not least, adjournment. The next meeting will be held on November 24th at 9 a.m. And the next meeting, November 17th, has been canceled due to CSAC participation. And we thank you very much. Thanks for having your patience with us for this long meeting. See you in 2 weeks. Oh, County Council.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to note for the record for the public that we are not likely going to have anything to report out of closed session.
Thank you very much. And no reporting out. Okay, and we'll take a brief recess now and come back for closed session in about 30 minutes. We have lunches here.
Thanks for the hat.
No problem. I wanted to get the, yeah, I know you got a great big one.
Yeah.
But I couldn't get one here fast enough.
Yeah.
Supervisor Peterson,
I'll wear it.
Curia,
Yeah.
Henny. If you'll go ahead, we're going to go ahead and end this meeting, and if you'll check your email, I sent a link for a fresh meeting for closed session.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
One of a kind, guaranteed to be a family heirloom.